Hello there, my name is Bruce Rain from Breakers Creations, and thank you very much for joining my live stream. Sorry about that strange little hiccup at the beginning. I thought I'd have a crack at using studio mode in OBS, and yeah, I'd probably need a little bit of practice first. I'm going to shout out and say hello to everyone who is here at the moment. Hello to Jay. Congratulations on being first in the chat. Well done. Jocelyn S. Nate Tronerud. Sad Mac 356, Thomas Armstrong, Trina. Sorry you couldn't stick around, but I quite understand. Daniel Flackelar, Retro Techie, Sam Johnson, Action Retro. Hello Sean. Hello Hot Rod. And I think that's everyone. So there we go. I think that's everyone that said hello at this stage. If you haven't said hello and you want to say hello, please feel free to do so. Always happy to say hello. It is Saturday at 11 a.m. here in Sydney, and it is an absolutely magnificent autumn day outside. Very, very nice. And here I am inside playing with computers. I've got a little bit of just sort of housekeeping to do here before I start on the recapping, and then I'm going to show you what I have down here at the moment for recapping and let you decide which one we start on first. So 9 p.m. Friday here. Yep. No, I generally, I mean, for me to live stream on my sort of Saturday, you know, mid to late morning. I know it's PM in the US, depending on whether you're on the west or the east coast. I think now. So what would it be? Yeah, so it'd be 9 p.m. on the was it East Coast, and 6 p.m. on the West Coast, I think, if I've got that right. But anyhow, you know, Eastern time versus what is it, the Pacific time or something? I can't remember. So yeah. Anyhow, hello to everyone. I've just been doing more of the same lately, more and more recapping. I'm wanting to work on a lot of pre-recorded content, but I just haven't had a whole lot of time. I opened up a box today, one box from one customer, and in it I found 6 recapping jobs. So that's just kind of how it goes. It's not as bad as that other big pink box that I opened in that live stream that time, the mystery box. What's in the mystery box? That one, there was like, I think at least 11 recapping jobs in it. So, but yeah, anyhow, that great big box, I'm working my way through it. So far, it's been fairly good. I've only had one problem so far, and it's this guy here, Classic 2, recapped, still has no sound. I've tried replacing the sound chip, no luck. There wasn't much trace damage in the first place, so I'm really not concerned about there being traces. I mean, it will be a damage trace somewhere, but you know, it was none of the obvious ones. So I'm going to have to get in with the old multimeter and go in and check all of the ins and outs of the sound chip and just try and find out why I'm not getting any sound from this one. Works, but no sound. And then I've got a Mac SE that I've been working on, which has been driving me bonkers. And it's this one here. And this was an interesting one because this one, it came to me with broken RAM sims at the bottom, sort of snapped away. And so I've replaced them with new RAM sim holders with little metal things so that they're much better. And that's all great. They're all fine and dandy. Replaced that. However, now when I try and boot it, it gets to the happy Mac face and just freezes. I've tried it booting from external SCSI, internal SCSI, and floppy, and it does exactly the same thing every time. Just boots up, does the memory test, comes to the little happy face Mac, and then just freezes there and just sits there indefinitely. And what's really difficult about that from a diagnostic perspective is that it's kind of working, It's just working and then freezing, and that just makes it really, really hard to try and figure out what the problem is. If something's dead, you can kind of work back and say, well, why isn't that working? But the fact that this is actually working, starts booting and then just freezes, it's driving me bananas. I have gone in and I've tested, because I replaced the RAM slots. One of the first things you do, of course, is check your own work. And I've gone through and checked the continuity of every single one of these pins, and it's going where it is supposed to go. I haven't accidentally created any shorts to ground there. I've tested for that, and it's not working, and it's driving me bananas. And so it is going up over here in my bananas pile. B for bananas. Okay, so did I say hello to Joe Williams? I'm not sure if I did. So hello, Joe Williams. Justin, hello, thank you for joining. Lane Brown, hello, thank you for joining as well. Who else we got? Did I say hello? Yeah, I said hello to RetroTechie. Yes, indeed. Dana, thank you for joining. And Genju Human. And it's not the middle of the night. What's going on? Don't tell me the Earth isn't flat. And yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe it's just a really happy SE. And the most frustrating thing about it is that I didn't test it before I started working on it. And speaking to the customer, I can't. I'm not going to accuse them of lying. They're not that sort of person. They're a good regular customer of mine. They said it was a good, reliable SE, apart from the cracked RAM slot. So, it makes me feel like I have stuffed it. But anyhow, I'll figure it out. Worst case scenario, I can always give him a brand new SE board in the form of this lovely new board that I still haven't started working on. Sorry, Kai. This is the Kai's Mac SE recreation. How awesome is that? Looking forward to making that, and as I say, it may end up being me make it to give to a customer as a repair, and then turn his board into a donor. But anyhow, drives me bananas. It's just one of the things that happens with this recapping stuff. I mean, sometimes you recap and away you go, and then other times you recap them, and they give you grief. And I'm fully expecting this one here that I'm about to test to give me grief. So this is a Classic 2. These are both Classic 2s. I've talked about this before on my live streams before. They do look quite different. This one on top is the original revision, where it has 4 ROM sims here, or ROM chips here, socketed ROM chips. And then this is the later one here, which has 2 ROM chips. Now, if you were to ask me which one I prefer to recap, I'm always going to say the older one, because it's got 14 caps that need replacing. This one's got 17 that need replacing. So I'll like to stick with the 14, thank you. But anyhow. Alright, so I'm going to grab my Classic case. Oh, that's an SE. Here's a Classic. I better move this, I'm going to trip over it. Here's my Classic. I still haven't got my little extension cable to allow me to test these things with the board outside. It's ordered. It's supposed to be here. What did they say? They said it's by the 27th. That's 3 days away. So hopefully next week. Jay, thank you for arriving, and thank you for announcing your arrival. I appreciate that. Oh, goodness me. Jay's referring to a little joke we made the other day about the old arriving at a live stream late and then saying, hey, what did I miss? Which, of course, I have been guilty of at least once. Shout out to Steve from Mac84. Obviously, most of the people here would know Steve from Mac84, and his absolutely awesome vintage Mac content, who lost a member of his fur family today. So, heart goes out to him. Very, very sorry about that, Steve. It's terrible when that happens. These little furry things do become such a huge part of our families, and it's all very, very sad when we lose one. Having just lost a member of my fur family recently. It was very, very soul destroying. Okay, so I've just connected up this Classic board, just hanging out the back, just going to check and see if it boots. Classic 2, sorry. It's connected to a Classic case. This is just a Classic 1 case, but the cables are interchangeable. Hello, Mike. Okay, so let's just move this out of the way and plug in some power and do it in an extremely dangerous fashion. Don't do what I do. And got no sound. And for all I know, could have... okay. Now, I suspect the sound is something else, because this is now 2 boards that I've put in that aren't making any sound. So I'm now starting to spec this analog board rather than the computers. So maybe the computers are fine. I might have to try out a different case to see if the sound is something to do with this board. Okay. Joe, thank you. Joe, I'm late. You're not late. It's all right. Well, I've just been killing time till you got here. So... is that not because the ground is only linked to the shield on the sound chip? Saw something about this on Adrian's Digital Basement. That was the Color Classic. I'm not sure if that is the case with the classical Classic 2 boards. And the reason why I say that is when you actually connect the board in there, it's not actually making contact with anything grounded. You know, there's nothing that I'm aware of actually touching the metal chassis. I could be completely wrong with that, but I can try it. How about I put it in the case and we'll give it a whirl, huh? This is what we do here. We experiment. Yes, so that one went on Adrian's Digital Basement. I'm almost certain was the Color Classic, which does have that issue. But we'll put it in because that's what we do. Because if I don't do it, everyone's going to be like, oh, man, I bet you that's it. I bet you that's it. I bet you that's it. Bruce should have tried that. Bruce should have tried it. So we're gonna try it. There we go. In goes the board. I said in goes the board. Thank you. Is the hole in the right place for these? Because this is a Classic 2 and a Classic 1 chassis. I think there some differences with where things are. I could be wrong. Okay, plug that in. I'm not going to worry about connecting up the hard drive. We know it boots. We've already seen that. All we're doing is we're trying it in the case to see if we get sound. That don't make no difference. Not to worry. But I will, as I say, I will try it in a different case because the fact that I've got 2 of these not creating sound anymore does make me extremely suspicious. Okay, so let's just get this unplugged. And we do it in a way that doesn't involve destroying a CRT. So this can go over here now. And then this is going to move because it's in my way. Goodbye. Goodbye. I'm not far away, don't worry. Just got a little table set up out there for putting surplus things while I'm doing live streams because I get myself a little bit crowded at times. Okay. All right. My ears with that mic bang. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's, sorry. Okay, all right. Right. I also had no sound condition. Turned out to be a cold solder on the analog board. You know what I need to do is I need to go and get my, because that computer that I just had in here, it's my Mac Classic case. It has actually had quite a bit of work done to it, recapping, replace the speaker, stuff like that. But the board for it, the actual logic board, is up in the house at the moment, so I can't even bring that down to test it to see if it works with the original Classic board, which of course would be conclusive, and that would be really good. It would satisfy our curiosity. I might do that later on because I like satisfying people's curiosity. But in the meantime, we're going to have a look at some recapping. So today I've got a few options here. I actually have a Macintosh portable board which I'm going to recap. The reason why I'm not doing it today is just because of time. The portable board is the first board, the non-backlit version of the board, which I have never recapped before. And as such, I don't have any good quality high-res photographs of it on my website. And I don't like recapping it until I get those photos of the board in its original condition. So I've got to go in and set up all my big lights and get my big flash camera out and go in and take some really nice high-res shots of it to then have up on my website and make a recapping guide for the, for the first version of the board. So that's the reason why I'm not doing that one today, but I will be doing it in the future, and that'll be a little bit of fun because I don't get a lot of portables to recap. Oh, excuse me. Where are we? That the LC, that problem, so they put the little spring on the jacks. Yes. Okay. Capacitor 2, I did was reflow the sound IC and was all good with the sound after. Yep. Well, this one I've actually taken the sound chip off and put it back on again. So, but it's just the fact that I've had it happen now with 2 boards. It just makes me a little bit suspicious. Early Macs like these, which don't really need to be recapped. Yeah. So the important thing to actually keep in mind with recapping in general is that anything with an electrolytic capacitor, aluminium electrolytic capacitor, so, whether it be, I've thrown all mine away lately, here's some, whether it be one like these little guys here, or whether it be like the surface mount kind, or whether it be the axial kind, they will all need recapping eventually. The technology used in those sorts of capacitors uses a liquid electrolyte, and that electrolyte will dry up with time. Seals go, the things that are sealing them together do go with time, and they will all need recapping. The thing is that some go earlier than others. And this is why we talk about recapping things like the Color Classic or the Classic or the SE30 or the Mac 2, all those computers that have the surface mount electrolytic capacitors on them, because they tend to leak faster than other caps. Then you've also got a lot of sort of bad capacitors being made during the, late 90s, early noughties, something like that, during what's referred to as the capacitor plague. There's a lot of information out about that. And during that time, there were a lot of capacitors being made with the wrong formula, the wrong chemical formula in them, and they had a very, very high failure rate. And so things like the iMac G5, if you open one of those up, you're likely to find many bulging, leaking capacitors in one of those, because they were made with these bad capacitors. So in terms of what needs recapping, I mean, ultimately everything will eventually, because capacitors have a limited lifespan. When you buy them with a lifespan kind of rating. So, you go onto a website and they ultimately tell you a lifespan and how many thousands of hours of operation they will give you operating at their peak temperature. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to immediately stop working when they hit that time frame, but it does mean that that they are not necessarily going to work at their peak efficiency, after that amount. So, and that can also be accelerated. Some capacitors that, for instance, I was working on a computer the other day. The design of the board had one capacitor right next to a transistor that gets really, really hot. And so what's happening is that capacitor is getting exposed to a lot of external heat, and that will actually reduce its lifespan. So, so the short answer is that ultimately anything with a component that has a lifespan on it is going to need, those components are going to need to need replacing at some stage. But there are some that need it quicker than others. So if you're someone that has, for instance, an SE30 that hasn't been recapped yet, a Mac Classic or a Classic 2 that hasn't been recapped yet, you got to do it. You got to do it now. Don't let someone tell you, oh, the answer is recapping. This thing still works. It doesn't need recapping. It needs recapping. Trust me. You'll find leakage under those caps, no matter who you are. So anyhow, even if you've stored it in a ridiculously, it's humidity, I think, which is better for the capacitors. I think high humidity is better for the capacitors, but of course high humidity can be bad for other things as well. Mac Plus should be here next week. Excellent, awesome. Okay, got you. Okay, so that was the the ROM error on the Mac Plus. So that's fantastic. Yes, I have full expectation that this, just responding to Jocelyn there, I have full expectation that putting those new ROM chips on there will fix the problem. So that's good. Lots of plastic close to the caps. That's on the. I think we're talking about the portable. Yes, that is definitely the case. What do I think of the new M1 iMac with retro G3 colors? I like them. I'm not going to necessarily buy one. They're not really marketed for me. Obviously with these sorts of computers, they cop a fair bit of criticism from certain people. But those people that are criticising them aren't who these things are marketed for. I think these things are going to sell like hotcakes. I think they're going to do incredibly well. I'm very interested to see speed benchmarks because during the Mac Yak show yesterday, we were talking about this at length. And that is that one of the really interesting things about the motherboard inside the new iMac is it has 2 fans on it, which suggests that it will run hotter than, say, the laptops or the mini version of the M1. Which would also suggest to me that it's probably clocked a little bit faster or something like that. So I think we're going to see better performance in the iMac than we do on the other models, but I'm only guessing. But I would like to see a benchmark. As I say, it's not something that I'm likely to buy unless someone just throws loads of money at me or Apple says, "Hey Bruce, here's an iMac," which of course they're not going to do that. They don't do that. But yeah, so. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I have 2 dead G5s. Yeah, I've actually got a couple of G5s. One works and one doesn't. But even the one that works, when you open it up, it's just all this brown stuff sprouting out of the caps. I plan to recap it one day, only because I just don't like it. You've got to replace like 25 plus caps in that thing, but. I just don't like seeing it not working. At the end of the day, Steve, hello, thank you for joining. I've just mentioned this before. Steve, so sorry about you losing a member of your fur family. Really, really sad moment, and so my condolences to you. Store all of my logic boards in the freezer. Does it make a difference? I want to know. Okay. Happy New Year. I know Max bring back some colour and deviate from the last decade of grey aluminium. They look great. Yeah, I do think they look nice. Is it kill blah? Is it blah? Is it say blah? Hello there. How do you? Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, we know these things are going to sell. We know heaps of people are going to buy these iMacs. This is not going to be a failure for Apple or anything like that, unless there's some sort of horrendous recall or something like that. But this is not the sort of computer that is marketed at someone like me. So anyhow. All right. Okay. We're just going to check. Captain 318, it is a while since I've seen you. Thank you very much for joining. CTR, hello. Oh, that's a classic tech. Is it crazy tech reviews? Sorry about that. Didn't mean to get that wrong, Logan. I don't know. I much prefer crazy tech reviews. CTR is just messing me up. It makes me think you're someone else. Okay. I don't saw them either. I've been known to lie on the internet. We know that, Dana. We've seen some of your lies. You've got to be one of the biggest internet liars I've ever seen. I was actually at a meeting, sort of a gathering of like-minded vintage Mac people associated with the Australian Computer Museum Society, and there are a few people commenting on your work, Dana. So yeah, you definitely generate some interest. Okay, I started to recap my iMac G5 and then stopped. No, if you're going to start, you've got to finish. I honestly don't hate the design. Just want one to have a newer Mac to use. And yeah. Well, should I agree? Mentally diverse tech reviews. That was the one I came up with. Oopsie. Okay, so here's what I have. That needs recapping. I'm going to have a look at what the customer has said about these to see if there are any surprises. We've lost. This is a classic with all of the little springy things gone. So that's going to mean some interesting things for the sound, isn't it? Color Classic. So, Color Classic. Thank you for the label. Here's a Color Classic. Here's a Color Classic. Have a look at the Color Classic. Color Classic. There's something written here that I can't quite make out. I'm better put on my... Well, actually, I might even look at it in the microscope because, it might help. rare, or is it P? Perf, though. Second word is though. Though, I think. Though. Though. I don't know what it. I'm never going to find out what that says. So. This one's pretty gungy. Lots of gunge on this one, so I think this one will definitely benefit greatly from a recap. I've got these couple of RAM sims here. These look like 2s to me, so two 2s on there to give us 4 on the board, and then we've got a 512K VRAM sim here, so that's nice. It's nice. That's the most VRAM you can put on that. And we have one here that doesn't cross my desk very often, and that is an LC520. So the really interesting thing about the LC520, let me just look this up in my system, because I want to make sure I don't give you false information, because I have been known to do that from time to time. I know everyone here will correct me, but how about I just get it right in the first place? Okay, so here we go. Bruce at Branches. There we go. So this is LC520. Let's have a look at the information. So, okay, yes, I'm absolutely correct in this. And this is where the LC520 really messes with my head sometimes. Generally, one of the ways I distinguish between all of these different types of boards is I usually look at the CPU and look at the speed of the CPU, and then I go, oh, I know what that is. It's 16 megahertz 030. I go, okay, I know that's going to be a Color Classic. If I see it's 25 megahertz, okay, no worries, it's LC520 or a Color Classic 2. You know, and you can just sort of get the information from that. There are other differences on the board, don't get me wrong, but that's generally where I look. But this is where I get absolutely stuffed up in the brain, insane in the membrane. Hang on, let me just change this to... I've just got to change the text so that it doesn't come up incorrect. Whoops. Sorry. There we go. Right, okay, all right, thank you. Right, so let's go to the microscope view for a moment. And this is where I get messed up with these LC520 boards. This is not a rare occurrence. This is very common. Here is our CPU. Let's get this in focus. Oopsie. So there's a slight time delay here with... There we go. Here, let's get this in focus. And have a look at the number on the end of this CPU. 68030FE16B. 16 meaning the speed of the chip, 16 megahertz chip. Well, this is an LC520, which is 25 megahertz. So why do we have a 16 megahertz chip on there when it's supposed to be 25? Well, there are a few theories out there. Hello, GT, welcome to the stream. There are a few theories out there as to why this is the case. One of them is that there are a whole bunch of these chips that are 25 megahertz chips that were incorrectly labeled as 16 megahertz. I do not subscribe to this theory, but that is one of the theories that's out there. The other theory is that Apple just put 16 megahertz chips on the on these boards and overclocked them to 25. And that is what I believe they did. So when you get an LC520, sometimes you'll have one that's labelled 25, but other times you have one that's labelled 16 and it's just been overclocked to 25. So, okay. Oh goodness me, chat's been going a bit busy here. I'm snoozing, you lose. Wow, look out. Right. Are you ever worried about electrostatic discharge when handling vintage boards? That's a very good question, Matthew, and generally the answer to that is no. I am fairly habitual in that I, sort of touch metal things when I kind of sit down at a table, and once I'm kind of sitting down, I'm okay. I have never actually had an issue with electrostatic discharge, but having said that, I'm not generally in an environment that creates a lot of electrostatic discharge. I might take a little bit more precaution as we get further into winter, because sometimes when it gets cold or if it's very windy, you end up with a lot of electrostatic discharge. But just with this sort of work that I'm doing here, I keep all these boards in anti-static bags, do the right thing. But I haven't really had any problem here. Now, of course, there will be a lot of people that turn around and say, "Oh, that's a very silly attitude. You'll get complacent, and very bad things will happen to you." And look, they're probably right. But I do take certain precautions, but certainly not as much as some people do. So there's a short answer. Hope there's something bigger on the way. I agree with you, Dana, but having said that, that resolution of that screen is pretty good, 4,500 pixels wide. So if you want to simulate sitting in front of a 27-inch screen with one of those 24-inch iMacs, all you do is sit 20% closer. There you go. Right, okay, so... tips for iMac G5 boards. Run the other way. I've never worked on one, so I don't really have any tips. I've got some out there, but I've never worked on it. I'm planning to probably do a video on fixing it, but I've just had so much of other people's boards to work. I haven't had a chance to work on any of mine. Not to mention the fact that I have to go out and order like 50 zillion capacitors to recap it. Iskil Blah, yes, well, thank you very much for that. It is an L, isn't it? Yeah, it is an L. I thank you very much for watching that. I mean, generally with these videos, apart from me prattling about vintage Macs, I do actually get in and do some soldering work. And I do provide tips while I'm doing the soldering work. And I'm also always happy to answer questions. So if anyone is here watching this live stream because they've subscribed to one of my soldering videos where I'm repairing traces or repairing damaged pads, you know, please feel free to ask any questions. I'm always happy to answer them. I'm always happy to demonstrate certain soldering techniques that I use. And I am planning or working on follow-up movies to some of those ones, follow-up videos where I'm actually going in and doing lots of different types of soldering techniques and that sort of stuff. So it's on the way. Okay. God, I'm so far behind. PowerMac 7200 one day. 7200. Now that's that's not a bad one to own. I've actually got two of them. Do you want one? Or is it a 7600 I've got? I don't know. Whatever I've got. It starts with a 7. And they've both got G3 upgrades in them. Okay. 520 is great anomaly in the Mac lineup. I agree with that entirely. Okay. Oh, that's no good about that. I mean, I'm glad you're in the RV because that's obviously a big step for you, GT. That's awesome. But I'm sorry the Wi-Fi sucks. A 16 megahertz chip would survive that easily. It certainly would. They did actually stick stickers on top of some of them so that you couldn't see it was a 16 underneath. Motorola use the same die for all the speeds. I use a static strap when removing chips from a board. Cool, cool. Yeah, I really should use a static strap. I've got one somewhere. I'm so short-sighted. I'm under 8 inches from most screens anyway. When I sit in front of most screens, I actually put I have little clip-over magnifying glasses that I put over top of these ones so that I can see a little bit better, because I am also going short-sighted because I'm old. I'm getting old. Are the first Intel Macs reliable besides the GPU failing on the 17-inch? Intel iMacs. I think so. The best person to speak to about that would probably be the House of Moth, if he's still around and listening. He has a very broad knowledge of known failures of different models of computers. So he would be the person I would defer a question like that to. Okay. Next planned main video. Well, I've got one which is so far into production that I just should get it finished. And that's the one where I go in and build a SCSI to SD version 4.2 from scratch. The only downside to that is that thanks to things like the blue SCSI, it's probably going to become irrelevant. But I still want to publish it. But one of the next pre-recorded videos I will be doing will be, and I've already started recording this. It is my Beginner's Guide to Soldering Part 2, Beginner's Guide to Soldering Electronics Part 2, and it is building a kit. And we will be building a kit. And then we will do Beginner's Guide to Soldering Part 3, and that will be surface mount soldering. It's all coming. It's all coming. Right, so let's just move along here. The thing is that I get most of my subscribers from my soldering videos. So as much as I enjoy doing these live streams and playing with the vintage Macs, obviously from the perspective of answering the response of the people who have been subscribing to this channel, I really need to make a lot of these videos about soldering techniques and stuff like that. Getting solder to do what you want it to do, all those sorts of things. I love drag soldering. Drag soldering is one of my favourite things on earth. But I am also planning a few videos to do with vintage stuff. I've just recently got hold of a 13-inch monitor, which is the same monitor that I had on my very first Mac that I bought with my own money, which was a Mac 2 that I bought in 1992. It was already second-hand when I bought it. I can't afford new stuff. But I bought a second-hand Mac 2 in 1992, and I have a Mac 2, and I've just got a screen for it. So now I've kind of got the original setup that I had. So I'm going to probably do a video on that. And I'm also going to do a video on the Macintosh 2CI because it's one of my favourite Macs. So they're all coming. So, DL Busters, you are most welcome. And you know, one of the things that I always say about this stuff is you just got to get out there and do it. You just got to get out there and practice it. I mean, you get better and better at it the more you do. I mean, the first soldering stuff I did was terrible. All right, okay. I really need to get going here because I could just sit here and chat to the chat and then we won't get anything done. So, Color Classic. LC520. Obscure one. LC2. This is an LC2. One of the ways I always tell that it's an LC2 is that it has this thing here for an FPU socket, but no socket there because Apple, even though they did all of the building of this so that it would accept an FPU, they decided as a cost-cutting measure not to make an FPU a user-installable option because they want you to buy something more expensive. So that's always the telltale sign with the LC2. Obviously, we know it's an LC board from the old pizza box because it has this cutout. That's the way we always tell if it's a pizza box one. But then as to which model it is, if it's an 020 chip, we know it's an original LC. If it's an 030 with this little gap here, we know it's an LC2. And if it has the socket on it as standard, it's an LC3. And then if it has a great big grey CPU, 040 CPU, we know it's an LC475 or potentially a Quadra 605, which they're essentially the same thing. I refuse to accept otherwise. And then last of all, we have an LC575, one of the most sought after boards on the planet, because people like to turn their Macintosh Color Classics into 040 machines by doing the Mystic mod. And you do that by using an LC575 board like this. So here's the old LC575. Now, you guys get to decide which one I recap first. So let's just go over them again as to which one we've got. We have got a Color Classic. We have an LC520. We have an LC2. We have an LC575. So I would like you guys to jump into the chat and vote and tell me which one you would like me to recap first, and that will be what we do today. I will let you vote while I quickly go in and have a look here. Actually, I can't look here. I have to look on my Pahone. My Pahone. And I'm just going to look up the information that this customer gave me about this batch of stuff, and we will figure out what all the problems are here, because he gave me quite a long description of all of the issues with these. Okay, LC520 and 575 boards work fine. Color Classic board has issues with half the image half patterned, which I know is the logic board as I swapped the 520 board in and no issues. Then the LC2 had a half crackling chime once, then nothing, no display at all. He sent me a couple of other things too. He sent me a Caddy drive, you know, the Caddy loading CD-ROM drive, which of course need recapping as well, the Sony ones. And he also sent me a power supply. He didn't mention a power supply in this, but I assume he wasn't recapped. He might have mentioned that somewhere else. Okay, so I guess from the challenge perspective, the LC2 and the Color Classic aren't working. So in some regard, they probably have a slightly greater appeal because they'll be like, recap it and see if it works afterwards. But yeah, so 520, 575, Color Classic LC2, and the LC2 and the Color Classic aren't working. So, providing you with that extra bit of information that the Color Classic and the LC2 aren't working, I will allow some people, if they want to go in and change their vote. If you do not want to change your vote, you do not have to. You can let your original vote stand. But I am now going to have a look at these votes. I'm going to see which one we're going to be doing. Okay, 575. Hang on. Okay. Could you install a PLCC socket if you wanted to have it work with a 688? It's a 6882 FPU, and the answer to that is a resounding yes. And that is exactly what I do to pretty much every LC that comes my way. I say to them, "Hey, would you like me to stick a socket in that and an FPU?" And most people say yes. I don't charge a whole lot for it. To be honest, the FPUs aren't that expensive to buy. But I'm just going to stand up here and pull my pants up because got to be careful what we show on these live streams. It's here. Yep. So here's what we have. This is one of my little containers of bits, and I keep a very decently large supply of these, which are, I should change the view, shouldn't I? Top view, oops, top view. Well, that's bright. I might need to fix that. I keep a very large supply of these, which are the, oops, little sockets. Yep. And I keep a pretty large supply of these, which are the FPUs. So if anyone comes to me and says, "Hey, can you do that to my LC2?" I absolutely do that. And I think he might have even asked me to do it. I'll need to go back and check my notes. But let's see if I can sort out the look of this image, because this image doesn't look too crash hot. Let's go to that one, and let's go to settings panel, and let's go to, you watch, I bet you any minute Jay is going to send me a text message. Whenever I put my phone on camera on a live stream, Jay sends me a text message. Okay. Has it come up yet? Or did it come up when I was away? You must have already done it. Here I was saying he was going to do it. He's already done it. Oh, good on you, Jay. At least you're predictable. That's one good thing. Okay, this one, we want the top cam. Let's go in and see if we can fix up this brightness a little bit, because it's a little bit harsh. I don't know. It looks a bit iffy, doesn't it? Stuff it. I'm just going to leave it as it is. We can cope with that, can't we? For whatever reason, it's probably because of this light over here. Messing with it. Messing. All right, so there we go. There we go. Oh dear. You're very predictable, Jay. I do love it. Okay, so now it is time for me. You will know it is time to turn the book. Anyone ever listen to those little golden books that came with a little record? Right, so here we go. 575, 575, 575, 575. We've got 575, 575, 575. Wow, 575 is popular, isn't it? All right, 575 it is. It's not surprising. I had a sneaky suspicion that's what people are choosing. You know why? Everyone loves the 575. Because the difficult thing is that I can't properly test it because I don't have a 575. And my Mystic Mac, I've recently unmysticked because I kept on getting Color Classics, and once you've changed it over, you can't. So I can test it in that I can see if it chimes, but it won't boot properly. Right. Yeah, that is a little bit bright, isn't it? Let's see if we can fix this up. Let's drop that brightness down a little bit. There we go. Very grainy, isn't it? Sorry about that. Because the other problem is this screen that I use down here, it's not particularly right in terms of colours. There you go. This camera up here has been on for days. It probably needs a little bit of a break. Right. Okay. So, okay. Right. Let me have a look here. Need one for my LC benchmarks. Yep. Where do you source your FPUs from? I have generally sourced mine off the interwebs, or probably even eBay. There was one seller that I bought from, and they were all good chips, so I went back and bought from the same seller. But if you're wanting to buy them in quantity, I would probably recommend UT Source. They have a lot of old chips, but yeah, if you're just looking for one or two, there are generally quite a few sellers on eBay will sell them. If you just search for PLCC 68882, whoops. Doesn't matter if the megahertz is higher than what you're putting it in. So, for instance, the ones I buy, I think might even be 40 megahertz, even though they're going into like a 16 megahertz, they still work. So, yeah. Putting power C board in LC575 is so much cooler. That big, yes. But 575 cases are getting hard to find these days because you can't ship them because they self-destruct if you ship them. You know, this is something, again, we've talked about on Maciac before. The weight of the trinitron inside them is heavy enough so that even if you pad them out to the max, a decent bang and, you know, a decent hit, and the weight of the CRT will actually break it away from the case, and you end up with huge cracks in there. If you're going to pack them, if you are going to ship them, which you shouldn't, you should have someone come and hand deliver them. But if you are going to ship them, they should be shipped face down so that the weight of the CRT isn't pulling down. But of course, the problem with that is that who knows what orientation your box is going to end up in when it's getting shipped. But, you know. Okay, let's go. Do most of your parts come working from eBay? Yes, they do. Yes, I know, that's right. That's very true. I thought I heard you mention the LC520 is the same as Color Classic 2. Found the LC550 to be this. Yes, sorry, my mistake. You're right. The Color Classic 2, which was 33 megahertz, same as the 550. So thank you for correcting me, and this is why it's good to have people in the chat that actually know what they're talking about. As far as aside from me, apart from me, who just goes around blathering anything that comes out of his brain, you are exactly right. I get the 520 and the 550 mixed up. Yes, the 550 is the same as the Color Classic 2. So you are quite correct. Color Classic 2 never sold in this country. I think only ever sold in Japan, from memory. Yeah, because the Color Classic 1 didn't do that well out here, but it did very well in Japan. So. Yes, that's right. It assumes the carrier respects those labels that are on it, which of course they very rarely do. So yes, basically the answer is, if you want one of those computers and it's not somewhere you can go and drive to pick it up, don't buy it. Here we have the board under the microscope. What will we recap today? We can change that now. We can say, oops, not that one. We can say, oops, recapping an LC 575. Okay, just make sure I spelled it right, because, if I can't spell recapping, it makes me look like a bit of a fool. Okay. I think someone said to me, if you write glass on them, they're more respectful of the fragile. If you just say fragile, they tend not to notice. But if you say glass, they're more likely to actually be cautious. I don't know if that's true. That's just an anecdote. Having said that, a lot of these delivery nightmare stories that I see, seem to come from the US predominantly. I've never had any issues with shipping stuff here in Australia. That's not to say that people don't have issues here in Australia, but most of these horror stories I've heard have come from carriers in the US. So I don't know if that's just the nature of the beast or what the story is with that. Just what I heard, man. Right. Let's get some caps off this. As usual, I use my hot air station. There's still a decent amount of sheen on these solder joints here, so these should come off nice and easily. That's not to say they won't pong. We do know this board already works, so that's all good, which means I'm not allowed to break it. So I'm just hitting this with hot air from a hot air station, and I am running it around about 435 degrees in the Celsius range, and I've got this on its maximum air blowing speed, and I do that for these. I want to just get these as hot fast, and of course it really doesn't matter because these caps are going to get thrown away, so it doesn't matter what happens to these, whether they melt and go all screwy and yucky, because they're just going to go in the bin. Or as an American would say, in the trash. See, I speak both languages. Multilingual. What's the best place to source new caps? Well, that does depend where you are, and I'm sorry about the lack of focus. Sorry, guys. Let me just sort that out. So, places you can buy, places I buy my caps from. I buy them generally from two places here in Australia. One of them is RS Components. One of the reasons why I buy from them is because they keep a pretty decent stock locally, and they're fairly close, so I get very quick delivery. And I used to get free delivery from them, but they've just now made it so that you've got to pay for delivery unless you do an order over $70. Now, it's not very hard for me to do an order over $70, because if I order whatever I need and then I go, oh, I've got an extra $30 to fill up, I just buy $30 worth of the surface mount caps I use for recapping, because I just always need more of them. So RS Components is one of the places that I buy from. Another one I buy from is Element 14. Another reason I buy from Element 14 is they are, again, they have a warehouse in Australia. So if I need things in a hurry, if I've done something stupid and realised that I haven't bought enough caps or something like that, I can usually get stuff from them either same day or next day. But for most people, you're looking at Mouser or DigiKey. And I have used both of those. I use DigiKey for the components I buy for making my SCSI 2SDs. I've used them for some other things. I just really hate the search engine on Mouser and DigiKey. I really like the one on RS Components. When it comes to finding what I'm looking for, I just hate the DigiKey and Mouser, the search thing with the filters and stuff. It's just garbage, and they don't have enough items to filter with. If you're wanting to find things with certain criteria, you just have the filter options up there, and you don't have the ones you want. So I hate that. Nah. That's just me having a rant. All right, I've missed a lot of chat here. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay. All right. Okay, there we go. Checked it all. Just going to check here. I'm currently sitting on around about 42 viewers, I think. So hello to all of you. And if you haven't said hello, please jump on and say hello. I do apologise for the fact that I have been what I consider to be particularly boring today. Lots and lots and lots and lots of chatter and not much doing. And it has a lot to do with the fact that I sit there and read the chat and then I respond to things, and the next thing you know, I haven't done anything. It's how we end up with me doing the slowest recapping on planet Earth. So we've got 3 caps in a row here, and generally when I've got 3 in a row, I will do all 3 at one time, because the board gets warm, and that makes the removal of the subsequent caps a lot easier. And I can't get this thing to stay up straight, and I'm getting very, very upset. I'm upset. Very upset. There we go. That's a little bit better. Just need to keep these things sheltered, because as you can see, we're right in the middle of a big city of plastic here. We've got an LCPDS slot here, and we've got the main connector here, main board connector there. So let's get rid of these 3 caps, 47 microfarad, 16 volt. And I think from memory, at least one of these is related to sound, but I could be wrong. I can't remember. Oh man, this one stinks. You smell. This cat's mouth. Off, off. If you start seeing plastic start to melt, I need you to call out, caw, caw. Let me know. Okay, 3 cats off, and those ones were particularly pongy. So, here's a little trivia question. Whoops, just bang the... Sorry about that. Bang. Here's a little trivia question. Who knows what this connector is? And what can you do with it? I should go to top view, should know. That's just stupid. It's just stupid. This connector here. Who knows what it is and what you can do with it? What purpose it serves? Okay, let's get some more caps off this. This is not one of the worst boards to recap. It's not one of the best either, but it's not one of the worst. There's not too many caps on here. It's not like doing an LC2. They suck. This is the sound chip here, by the way. And as you can see, he lives in the middle of a city of nasty capacitors. 4 of them. 2 on one side, 2 on the other. And this is why a lot of the time one of the first symptoms of capacitor leakage is lack of sound. They leak their electrolytic goo into these sound chips, and the next thing you know, no sound comes from your computer. Get off. Get off. Banished from the board. Yeah, falling in my lap. De cap, yes, I know, it needs to be made. It is indeed a COM slot. Well done, Mr. Fahrenheit. That's correct. You can you connect up a modem or Ethernet into. I mean, you can obviously use the LCPDS slot for an Ethernet card, but you can also run Ethernet from that COM slot. So, Fiber Connect, not quite. That'd be good. Right, okay, there we go. So yes, COM slot, you will see it on some of the LCs. I think like things like the LC630 and stuff, they have them as well. I don't know, I've never actually tried to source a peripheral for it. I mean, I'm sure they're out there, but I didn't take the RAM off. I normally take the RAM and the VRAM out before I start working on these things. None of that today. I'm going to take that off, going to put it in a little baggie, and we'll label it with the job number for this particular thing. Here's my baggie. Here's the stuff. Has it got a battery cover as well? Oh no, that's right. These are the ones that use those stupid Rayvac batteries. 4.5 volt square Rayvac batteries. I must make a 3D printed case to use those with LR44s. So it's coming, people. It's coming. What was the first Mac to have a built-in network port? It would have been an AUI port rather than just a standard Ethernet port. And I guess, you know, it was probably earlier than PowerPC, I would have thought. Oh, crikey, I did. Let me think. It would have been a Quadra, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it have been one of the Quadras, like a 650 or something like that? Steve? 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 Answer, please. I've got a Quadra 700 up home. But actually, I've got a Quadra 700 board here. Let me have a look. If it's got one. Is that a 700? Or is that a... Yeah, that looks like a 700. Let me not. No, that's a CI. Definitely not on a 2CI. What about this one? What about this one? Oh, that's a VX or VI or something. I'm telling you that's got those on it. What about this one? This looks like a 700. There you go, look at that. Dana gets the Christmas pudding. There is your top view. Here is a Quadra 700. And here is your AUI network connector. Bing, ba, bing, bing, bing. Bing, bing. Bida, bida, ding. I really need more board storage. Incidentally, these boards that are behind me here, you don't need to worry too much about them. Most of them are donor boards. They're not actually ones that are going to be repaired or anything like that. Okay. Yep, so, yep, Dana was correct. So, yep, there's no disputing. We have proven it now. So you can all stop looking. 575, this is job number 117. So let's write 117 on here so we know who these RAM sticks and VRAM sticks belong to. If it ain't labelled, it's mine. And there we go. I can't see the chat anymore. There we go. Alright, so I've taken all the RAM out now, and we've got to get these caps off here. They live in a mountain of plastic, and at times like this I really wish I had solder tweezers. But I don't. But I should get some, because there are even cheap ones out there, which would probably be better than the ones I have now, which of course are none. I have none. I have none. Done a fragile labour for any Macs you wish to keep from being knocked out and transformed. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. I expect it to be either dead serious or funny. Contains glass, microwave, fish and bees. I like it. I like it. Well done, Dana. That's awesome. Okay. Genju Human. My name is Jason. Okay, well, don't be at all offended if I forget that, because I am very, very good at forgetting names. It is a special skill that I've had for many, many years. But I will try and remember if I can. What's that? It's like there's got mould on it or something. I haven't seen that before. Flame and Mungle. Anyone with chocolate mousse? Hey! She's a gore, that one. I'm going to have to make sure I get a recording of this live stream so that I can get that sound. That was a good sound. I'm going to make it my new ringtone. Hey! This, incidentally, is the CUDA chip right there. If you're having a problem with... What is it? It's the computer just completely dead. It's off on that one. Look at all this mouldy stuff. That's like mold, isn't it? Or something. And right there... I think it's... No, it's not there. Here it is. S1. That there is the CUDA reset switch. It's not actually there, but if it was there, S1, crossing those will reset the CUDA chip. So there you go. Okay, yeah, so they don't... I mean, this one's been very, very pleasant. It's been just taking these caps off and they've just been oozing out their chocolate mousse and then I just take them off. But that one went postal on me. And the thing is, even when you know you've got all of this protection from your eyes with the microscope, because through it you're seeing it in stereo. You're not. I am. I'm seeing it in stereo. Whee! Here goes another one. Same reaction. Because I'm seeing it in stereo, when they do blow up, and in particular blow up and upwards towards you, you do freak out a bit. But I think what's getting me with these ones is the noise. Hey. Okay. Right, so here we go. Let's get these two off. Let's see if these ones are going to be poppers as well. Poppers. What the? I've got to show you something. She's about to blow. Yes, she is. It's funny how I got all those earlier ones off without any popping, and then all of the ones afterwards are popping. She can't take much more of a captain. Come on, keep going. Okay, well I think that's all of the caps, but I do want to show you something which I find pretty interesting. I don't know if this is because someone's had to play around with this board with a soldering iron or something, but over here, look at how crooked that chip is. How's that for shonky Apple manufacturing? Look at it. Wonky as, bro. Okay, so I'm just adjusting my microphone here. It's digging into my skin. Sorry, it's probably very noisy. Okay, right, okay, alright. I think I'll probably straighten this up because I'll be quite honest, I am just disgusted that it's so crooked. So I'm just going to get some, what do you call that stuff? Flux on there. Anyone who might have watched my soldering videos, I do a fairly lengthy description or explanation of what solder flux is and what it does and why it works for you and why it's important for things. I did actually have someone ask me the other day, they bought themselves a little pot of that rosin flux, and they said, is that okay for electronics? And I said, yes, it's absolutely, well, I haven't said anything, but I am going to say, yes, it's absolutely okay. I use flux that is designed for BGA work, BGA, you know, like a ball grid array type work and real sort of delicate surface mount stuff. Oopsie, don't you move. But I just like it for everything. I like using it for all types of soldering. But yeah, absolutely, rosin flux, no problem. It's, you know, just make sure you get one from an electronics shop. Don't buy one from like your main hardware. Get one from like an electronics retailer, or you know, sort of a specialist. All right, let's just neaten up these joints here with a bit of drag soldering, which, as I mentioned before, is one of my favourite pastimes. And that one's looking a lot neater now. Was that necessary? Absolutely not. Right, I've just turned on my fume extractor, because as everyone knows who watches my live streams, I like to forget to turn it on until the last minute. So I just love inhaling flux fumes. Very bad for you, folks. You really should not be inhaling flux fumes. If you're going to be doing soldering, you're going to be working with flux, you're going to be working with heat and all the smoky stuff. This stuff is not meant to be inhaled. Let's face it, nothing but air is meant to be inhaled. That's a comment specifically for vapors. Okay? People vapors? Vaping? Peoples? It's not meant to be inhaled. Don't try and convince yourself that it's healthy. Okay. We get all this flux on here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up all these joints. Because as I mention in my videos all the time, the most important thing with soldering is to make sure that what you are soldering and what you're soldering to is clean. If it's not clean, you're not going to get good joints. Solder's not going to do what you want it to do. It's going to be fighting you all the way, and then you're going to walk away going, this soldering hobby sucks. And I don't want you to be doing that. I want you to be doing it and going, wow, this solder does exactly what I want it to do. This soldering hobby is awesome. So there. use the same flux that's life changing. So there are links to it in the description, but what we're referring to is Amtech NC559V2TF. And the truth is, you know, if you've used different fluxes and then you use this one, it is way, way better. It doesn't smell as bad as some of the others either. I do have other ones that you can use. I've tried quite a few different types of fluxes, and there are many that will give you just as good results in terms of the residue it leaves behind on the board, how long it works for. Because as you use flux, it tends to burn away, and then you need to add more if you want to keep working. And so you want a flux that kind of hangs around on the board a little while, and you want one that doesn't leave great big black kludgy things all over the board. Some of them do. I've tried some fluxes where they're very effective fluxes, but when you finish, you're left with all this black sticky gunk on the board. Now these still need to be cleaned afterwards, but it is referred to as a no clean flux gel. So in theory, you can leave small amounts of it on. I absolutely wouldn't, but because you can just trap a bit of moisture under there and you sort of just create some corrosion and stuff. So, but you know, that's how they market them. They market them as a no clean flux. Look, we've got a crooked sticker as well. Geez, they weren't paying attention when they put this one together, were they? Send it back. I wonder if it's still covered under Apple Care. Do not use plumbing flux. This is very, very true. And it's interesting you say that, because when I very first started soldering, and I was young, very young, and I was sort of taught about soldering by my dad, who used to use it every now and again, just do a little bit of wiring here and there, just hobby-based stuff, just, you know, looking after stuff around the house, that sort of thing. And we used to have this particular flux that we used, and it was highly corrosive. I think they call it active flux as opposed to a passive flux, something like that. I can't remember the terminology. It's in my video, it's very, very corrosive. And if you don't wash it off, your joints will all go to rot eventually because it just corrodes them. So I get my flux from Amazon as well. No, I don't think someone's had a go at replacing the caps on the board before. I think this is, I honestly think that little crooked chip was just like that out of the factory. Hoping to find flux supply locally in Oz. Yeah, well, what AUZ is that? Are we talking about? Oh, I know you, Michael. Yeah, sorry, Michael. There is a flux that you can buy in Australia if you want to, if you don't want to buy the stuff from overseas. Which one is it? Let me see if I can find it here in my container full of goo. Okay, I've got a few here. I've got Chip Quick, which is, it's okay. It's not my favourite, but it's alright. I've got this one here is it MG Chemicals? Something Chemicals. You can buy that here in Australia. And there's another one here which is Interflux. Now Interflux I actually quite like. I like this one. And let me just see if I can find this, and I'll post a link for you, Michael. If they still have it. Again, this is a link for Australians. It's not really one for overseas, because this is an Australian seller. They're actually just very close to where I live, and nice and close, very convenient. I buy soldering iron tips from these. These guys are a Hacko reseller, so I can get my solder tips from them, and I get my isopropyl alcohol from them as well. So I'm just going to look up, and I will find the one and put a link in the chat for you, Michael, so that you can... Why is this not working? Why is this not working? I feel like they've tried to do something clever with their website, and it's really upsetting my browser. So I'm going to try a different browser. Okay, just going to try and do this quicker because it's very boring for other people. Come on. Hurry. Hurry. Yeah, see, this one seems to work a little bit better. Alright, here it is. There's MG Chemicals. Let's just have a look. There's Interflux. There we go. So I'll post a link of this one. As I say, I've tried this flux and I do like it. It's not as good. It doesn't smell as nice as the Amtech, and it is not quite on the same par, but at least you can buy this one locally. So let me send this link to you, my good sir. Copy. Okay, there's the link, Michael. If that, I hope that is of use to you. Two tantalum caps on the board we saw. The two tantalum caps on the board we saw. Oh, sorry, no. These boards did have quite a few tantalums on there already. So it's just these other ones that are surface mount electrolytic. So, excuse me. It's front. Yes, they can. I have a 2FX that had a blown tantalum at Scuzzy. Had to use the electrolytic pads for the replacement tan. Yeah, so that happened to me as well. It happened to me during a live stream. It was a private live stream, not a public one, and I'm glad because I swore my head off when it happened. But I recapped the 2FX that had a tantalum cap on it, connected it up, and that tantalum cap blew up and nearly took me face off. And in that instance, what I did was I replaced that one with a slightly higher voltage polymer cap, because I decided that if the stresses on that tantalum capacitor are enough to make it blow up, I think I should put a higher rating one there. So it was a 47 microfarad 16. I put a 47 microfarad 25 volt polymer surface mount electrolytic capacitor in replacement of it. So hopefully that will mean no more blow upage. Okay, so let's continue cleaning up these. Oh, I was on these ones. Back here, back. Don't drop the gun. Okay, and when I'm working around here, I'm always wanting to be extremely careful where I put my soldering iron, because this connector at the bottom here is just mountains and mountains of plastic, and I don't want to send one of these back with melts on it, because I get them sent to me from people who have recapped them themselves with melts on them, and I don't want to send them. You know, I don't want to do that. I don't want it to be, oh, Brankus, the guy who melts the connector. No, sir. So I'm always very careful around these connectors and make sure I don't do any meltage. Incidentally, can I just mention to folks, once I get to the point where there are sort of over 40 viewers, which there are at the moment, the chat does tend to fly by fairly quickly. So if you ask me a question and you don't get an answer, you may need to ask again, or use the @Brankus Creations at the beginning of your message so that it highlights in the chat, so I can recognize that it is a question that you're asking me that wants answering, and then it's likely to stand out when I see it, because obviously once the chat gets rolling, people are just chatting away to each other, and I often miss some of it. If you really want my attention in a hurry, there's always that super chat button. It's amazing the way that little super chat button always seems to motivate me to answer just that little bit quicker. So no obligation there, just telling you. Just telling you that's what happens. Okay, cleaning these up. These tantalum caps, by the way, if you do hit them with hot air, they do go brown, which is not very pretty. I try not to make them brown. I'm curious what got spilt on this board. I don't think it's cap juice. This didn't leak enough. Something got spilt on the board and it's gone mouldy. I discovered something. I haven't tried it yet, but I just saw an ad for something the other day. Oh, Sean, thank you very much. Super Chat is not for attention, nothing to see here. Well, thank you very much anyway. You get one free question. I'm not sure that there's anything that I can answer that you don't already know, but you get one question out of that. You can ask me anything you like. So, Sean, fire away. You can ask me about Quadra 700s because I saw you got a new Quadra 700 lately, and I'll tell you what. They are one of my favourite Macs. I love the Quadra 700, and I'm curious to see whether you're going to do anything interesting with that in the future. Pop or tea with cream? I'm not sure what that means. He's 91%, 99, fairly difficult to get where I'm at. Okay, that's interesting. So this is what I get, and this is branded by the company I buy it from, Mectronics. That's that link I just put in here. I just buy it in these 5-litre bottles, and I think during COVID they got a lot of it because people were buying it to make hand sanitizer. And so after COVID was over, I think they ended up with a bit of an oversupply, so they started selling the stuff for half price. So I just bought stacks of it. I love this. I love having isopropyl alcohol around. It's just it's a very handy thing to have around. And this one is sold as 99.997%. What does LC stand for in the title? Low cost. Yes, Caden got that one correct. That was it was all about letting people know that they were making these entry-level computers for the home user they could use. And it worked. Computers like the LC and the Classic and Classic 2, all of these ones really got the Macs into homes, whereas prior to that, they'd been too expensive. I'm just going to clean up some of these. I've removed all of the caps. I've cleaned all of the pads by the looks of it. I mean, often when I remove these, I find one that I've forgotten to clean. We'll just cross that bridge later on. But I'm just going to clean some of this excess flux off because it's just nice to do that. Just doing it with a toothbrush. And as I say many times in my videos, this is not the toothbrush I use for brushing my teeth. And just get a little of this isopropyl alcohol. I've got one of these little dispensary type things like that. And they use these for like nail salons and stuff, and they put nail polish remover in them and stuff like that. But anyway, I just have alcohol in there, and you push down and squeeze out a little bit of alcohol. As you can see, it's very, very dirty because it's been used a lot. There was something I wanted to mention, but I can't remember what it was. Just worth pointing out on this one, we've got this slot here with nothing connected to it, and I think if my memory serves correctly, that was for a ROM sim. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was meant to be for a ROM sim. But the ROM is actually, I think that's the ROM soldered on the board there. So, yeah. And of course the education market, boy, all those LCs and stuff in schools and things. Caps. Goodbye, caps. So, I'm going to do something interesting here this time. I'm going to use what did I say it was called? What? I can't read it. I put the link for it before, but I can't read what it says. Interflux or something? I don't know. I'm going to use this one just to do a couple of the caps on this, just to show you that this one still works fine. Interflux, I think it is. You have a 575 that has the ROM slot there. Isn't that cool? And it is populated as well and everything. Wowzers. Okay, let's get a recapping guide out. Anyone who needs a recapping guide for any of these computers, please have a look on recapamac.com or recapamac.com.au, whichever one you prefer. On that, you will find guides for what caps go where. Now, interesting thing, I mean, with most of this stuff, if you search for recapping, Recap a Mac will come up quite high in the search because I've got so many pictures of boards that it's, you know, it's become a little bit like a little internet resource. So here is a 575 board. This is my one. This is not the one you'll see on the website, because the one on the website's been tidied up a little bit. It says 575 backwards. You know why it's called backwards? Because I did this guide with the voltage before the capacitance, 16 volt 47 instead of 4716. All of my guides are 4716 rather than 1647. So I got this one backwards. I don't know why. I've got no idea why, but I did. This one has two 100 microfarads, 6.3 volt, and 104716. So we're going to grab those from the little capacitor container. I'll start off with the two 100 6.3s. Grab those out of the container and ponk, ponk. And then we're going to grab some of this different flux. We'll put some here and here and here and here. Now, if you're wondering why I put it down on the board beforehand, it's because of the way that I solder surface mount components onto the board. When you're soldering through-hole components, you just use the flux core of the solder. You actually melt the solder onto the part, and the flux helps you get a nice clean joint, because the flux only works at the time that the solder first gets melted. Once the flux is gone, your solder's going to get all kludgy and oxidized, and it becomes very hard to work with. So that's how I do stuff through hole. But when I'm doing surface mount, and this has a lot to do with the fact that I have only got two hands. You may notice, see, there's only two here. And I have one hand holding the component. I have one hand holding the soldering iron. So I have no hand left over to feed that solder onto the component. And don't try and sell me on those soldering irons where you pull a trigger and feed the solder out. They are not the sort of soldering iron that you would use for this sort of work. So what I do is I put the flux down onto the surface here, and this helps the solder go all lovely and liquidy and gooey and make lovely joints, even though I've put the solder onto my iron first. So generally when you're soldering anything through hole, you'd never put the solder onto the iron first. You put the solder onto, you melt it onto the component. So you use the iron to get the component hot, or the pin of the component hot, a lead, and then you melt onto it. And then the flux and the solder are melting at that time. But I don't have the luxury of being able to do that with this surface mount stuff. So I get some solder and I melt it onto the tip of my iron here like this. Now, there's all the smoke going up, and at this point now, that flux is gone. It's done its dash. There is no more flux on this anymore, so the solder that I've got on this iron is now is going to start from this point, start getting really kind of hard to work with. Right, sorry, I just banged the microphone. Sorry, everyone. Sorry. So here, when we look at this under the microscope, it's already getting a film on it. This solder is going to get harder and harder to work with. And if I'm actually trying to do something useful with the solder, I'm going to need a new source of flux. And that's where this comes in. I've got my flux on the board. I'm going to hold my component there, and then as this solder hits the flux, it gets all lovely and fluid again, and allows me to get a nice neat joint. And my God, this flux stinks. Oh, where's my fume extractor? I'm going to go back to the other flux soon. It works well. I mean, it does the job, but it just doesn't smell as nice as the Amtech stuff. I do wish someone in Australia sold it. Maybe I should start importing large quantities and selling it myself. Got these great ideas. I should write them down. All these lovely joints. The thing is that when I'm doing this sort of soldering, the solder is doing everything predictably. It's working exactly how I expect it to work. And if you're not getting that, if you're not getting the solder doing what you want it to do, you then kind of have to figure out why. What's going wrong here? How do you remove through-hole components? It's hard for me. It's hard for everyone, Caden, I promise you. There are several ways of doing it. Number one is you can use well, it's kind of essentially three ways, I guess, of doing it. One way is to use something like this, which is a solder sucker. You do have to be careful with these. God, it's dirty, isn't it? You do have to be careful with these because they can suck really hard and sometimes suck things off the board, which you don't want sucked off. And so you put these down, you melt the solder, you press the button, and then the little plunger springs up and sucks solder into there, and that can generally get solder off that, off the pin, off the hole, and that will allow you to then remove it. Doesn't always work that well. Then you've also got solder wick, which I have here. Here's my gut wick, 2mm gut wick, and this stuff is braided copper, which is designed to draw solder into the braid. It's got some flux on it and it draws solder into it. And then so you put this down and you apply heat to it, and this draws all the solder in. Once the solder is gone, then the pin is freed. Then the final way is to use something like this, which is an actual desoldering station or a solder sucker, something like this. It has a little canister in here. It has this little hose that's got air that sucks, and this is like a soldering iron tip but with a hollow end. And you basically apply heat, and you press the button, and it melts the solder and then sucks the solder up into this canister. But what I can tell you, as someone who has done a lot of that, it's still difficult. If I was wanting to, say, remove this, see all those pins there? Even after going in and using the mechanical solder sucker to get all the solder out here, there would still be some residual solder in there. And it's really hard to get things like this off, and you might apply a little bit of hot air and push them through. So if it comes to just removing something like a capacitor, which has two leads, that's often a lot easier. But when it comes to big things like this, like a RAM slot or like a connector like this, there's no easy way. That's a new sucker. It's the same base station. It's just a new gun. So my old gun, I ended up finding out what the problem with it was, but it stopped heating properly, and it was because a wire inside it had started to fray, which I have since fixed, and I've even got a spare heating element for it. But I just bought a new gun. So the base station exactly the same, just bought a new gun, and this one's been working really, really well. So I've been happy with this one. And of course, not to mention the fact that when I bought my other one, the very first thing I did with it before I'd even had a chance to use it was drop the glass canister on the ground and smashed into pieces. And then I glued it together with JB Weld. I have since bought replacement glass canisters, but yeah, that was not my finest hour, shall we say. Okay. No, I don't. Artist Av, I do not. Basically, all I have when it comes to doing any sort of surface mount stuff is I've got my hot air station, so I don't have any of those big heatery thingies and stuff like that. I don't do enough surface mount stuff for it, just the hot air I use, so I do need to get more stuff, but to be honest, with the stuff that I'm doing here, the hot air station is fine for this kind of work that I do. What do we got here? Please don't use the twist method for removing capacitors. I would agree with that 100%. It will potentially work for you 9 times out of 10, but that one time where you tear off a pad, you then got a pad that you need to sort out. And I get quite a few boards that have been sent to me from people who have used the twist off method for capacitors. But of course, I'm talking about surface mount here. Then if you're talking about twisting off through hole, I don't know. I've never even tried that. Has anyone tried that? All right, okay. I'm going to just let everyone chat amongst themselves. Oh, 62 viewers, my goodness. Hello, everyone. Feel free to jump on and say hello if you haven't before. Yes, because last time I checked it was 40, so about 20 people have rocked up in the meantime. Don't forget to smash that like button. I don't know why I feel compelled to do that these days, but I get asked to do it a fair bit, so... Alright, so I'm going to go back to the Amtech, because it doesn't stink as much as the Interflux does, or whatever it's called. But this is still a good flux. Still does a good fluxy job, but it's just a bit stinky. So, Alright, so we're going to just get some flux onto these pads. Now. Now. I wonder where my colour classic is. Oh, I think it's in there. Cool. Is it true solder suckers can kill a PCB? Well, not necessarily sure it would kill a PCB, but if you've got an old board that's a little bit corroded, you can sometimes, suck pads up, or if you've got the pin going through the hole there, and you've got the trace going around the outside, and you can suck those things up sometimes if you apply too much force. I'm generally pretty careful when I use that solder sucker. I use it on boards that I know are still in pretty good condition and everything's still stuck down. Ron, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I only twist off caps if I'm going to stick a paper clip in the power supply directly afterwards. Fair enough. And the heat pads reflow first. 1 out of 1,000. Yep. I mean, as I said, from the perspective of people who do use the twist off method, I am never going to tell you if it works for you and you want to keep doing it. I'm never going to tell you to stop doing it. All I'm going to tell you is I will never do it, and I will never recommend it. But I know there are a lot of people that do it and they swear by it, and that's fine. But I can tell you, I've had some boards across my table here where the pads are so precarious. I mean, they are barely holding onto the board because of corrosion. In those instances, you're pretty much guaranteed to lose a pad if you try to apply any force. Right, okay. Mark Purdy, how are you? Let's see. Did I say hello? There are a lot of people here I probably haven't said hello to, but hello everyone. Okay, so let's get some caps on here. This time we are on to the 47 microfarad 16 volt. One of the things I always talk about when you're putting these tantalum capacitors in replacement of the... How many were there? 10. In replacement of the 4, 5, 6. I can't talk and count at the same time. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, you watch. If any of these disappear, it's because of the capacitor fairies. So, because these tantalum caps have wider pins than the electrolytic ones, the electrolytic ones are these little thin pads on there. I know it's not very close. I mean, they're very thin. Okay, will it focus? Come on, focus. Focus. There we go. They're very thin, and these tantalum ones are wider. And so what that means is these can hang over the edge of the pads that were originally put on the board for those electrolytic caps. So you have to be very careful that if you've, during the cleaning process, exposed any areas of trace around those pads, that you get that covered up with a bit of UV solder mask. Ow, I just hurt my nose. And you get them, you make sure that they're all coated over so that you don't accidentally create a short from that overhang of the tantalum cap pin. So let's, this one's got really, really good solder mask on it. It's really solid. But some of the Macs have really delicate solder mask on it. So for instance, if you are working with a Classic 2, it's probably one of the really bad ones from my experience. Classic 2s, it's really easy to scrape off the solder mask from the traces. So in those instances, you have to just be very careful that you don't accidentally create short circuits. And when people do recaps and the recap doesn't work afterwards, that's generally the first thing I tell people to look out for. Is have you created an accidental short because the tantalum caps have a wider pin and it hangs over the edge and potentially, it makes contact with something it shouldn't make contact with. So that's one thing I will always say to people, check that first. I say. Let's get some flux around. Oh, we've got the lovely, delicious smells of Amtech flux now, rather than the stinky other one that I was using, Intertech or whatever it is, Interflux, I think it was. But I also have the fact that I didn't have my fume extractor nearby. Always important to use a fume extractor, folks, with this sort of stuff. You don't want to be breathing this sort of stuff in. It's worse than vaping. Okay. Being very careful I don't melt any plastic here. I'm getting a little bit freaked out. I'm awfully close to the plastic. Have you ever broken a board, sent in for repair? I always wonder what to do if I start doing repair services. No, I don't think so. I've sort of got one here at the moment, which I might have, but I'll fix it. I mean, yeah, I mean, generally if someone sends me a board that works, I don't send it back to them not working. I mean, if someone sends me a board that's not working, I can't always get it working. And there are lots of reasons for that. I mean, one of which is the fact that a lot of these boards, there's very limited information on them. There may not be schematics, very limited information on some of the components that are on the board because they're so old. It's hard to actually find information about it. Some of them, they're Apple things, so it's hard to get info. So it makes diagnostics very hard sometimes. So I have had instances of boards that people have sent me where they've been busted and I haven't been able to repair them. I've had to send them back pretty much the same way they are. Because what happens is people buy these things, they get them broken or whatever, they buy them on eBay, it's not working, and they jump onto a forum and they say, hey, this computer doesn't work, what do I do? And everyone says, oh, recap it. So they then contact me and say, I've got a board that needs recapping. I was like, no worries, I recap it, and it's still not working. But the truth is, the thing could have been not working 20 years ago in someone's garage, and then someone pulls it out and sells it on eBay, and everyone just assumes it's going to be fixed with a recap. And then, of course, the other thing is sometimes the leaking capacitors create short circuits that can actually just fry a chip on the board, and then all of a sudden you've got a dead component there. But in terms of actually breaking someone's board that was sent to me, no, I haven't done that. The closest I've got to it is this board over here at the moment. Which I'll fix anyway. I mean, it's giving me grief, but it will be fixed, and it's something I've done. I don't know. Where am I? Yeah, okay, here we are. Moving right along. Let's add another cap to the board. As I say, all of these are 47 microfarad 16 volts, so I don't need to concentrate too much about which one goes where, because they're all the same from here on in. So if it's an empty cap spot, it's going to have a 4716. You can see from the little code there, 476, which means 47 followed by 6 zeros, and that gives you its measurement in picofarads. So it is 47 million picofarads, and that is 47 microfarads. I'm having trouble with this one. It is bed. Here we go. And let's see if I can squeeze into the side of this without melting any plastic. Ooh, close. Might get a little bit more solder on that. There we go. Got it in there. I do actually have... Oh, you didn't even see that. Sorry. It's just... I've got a little close little spot in here that I was trying to get into. I've got a slightly different tip that I use for those sorts of very small spaces. But I can't be bothered changing the tip at this stage. Okay. Okay, just checking the chat here, just making sure. Got a board that had been in a fire. Yeah. You know, Thomas, I still haven't sent your boards up to send back to you. I'm going to try and get that done this weekend. I just keep getting tied up with this stuff. Do you use the size C tant cap? Why not just use the D size, smaller ones that fit in the space? Do you prefer the larger size for any reason? Well, this one here in particular, I think is a perfect fit. It just gives me just the right amount of space on either side. Make sure it gets very securely put onto the board. So this size here, I'm all happy with. When it comes to the smaller ones, this size here, I have recently, and I mean really recently, just started using slightly smaller ones. if we have a look at this board here, this one has no caps on it. If we look at this board here, and we look at, focus, you look at this one here, C9. Now this would have originally had one of those smaller surface mount electrolytics on it, which I don't have one at hand, but what I used to always do is I used to always put this size capacitor on them. And I don't have any issue with putting that size capacitor on there. I mainly use that size because that's the size that was originally recommended to me when I very first started recapping back in the olden days. So yeah, this one here, it gives you virtually no space on either side of the pad. Now, that's not really an issue, you know, I don't really mind that, but I know that if you're a little bit new to soldering and struggling a little bit, then that's possibly a little bit difficult to do. So what I have actually started doing just recently is, where did it go? Didn't I grab another one? Did I? Or did I just not grab it? Did I think about grabbing it and didn't grab it? What I've just recently started doing for these smaller ones is I've started using this size, which is a much easier job for soldering it onto these little ones here. So that's what I generally do these days. I probably need to update the links on my website to include these ones because I just think they're a little bit easier to do. They give you a bit more space of pad to get some solder onto. So yeah, there's really no reason for using those big ones other than it's just kind of what I was used to. But you know, Steve from Mac 84, he started buying the smaller ones, and I thought, why the hell aren't I doing that? So I did. There you go. Okay, so we've got that cap in place, and then let's get these ones here that are floating around the these plastic connectors. So we need to be very, very careful with the way we put them on. Don't want to melt anything. Okay. The oscilloscope, and it's very happy now. That's Nathan. Very, very well done. It's good to have. I've got to sort something out with the way I have this desk set up so that I can get my oscilloscope down here. I need to, when I ever need to do testing with the oscilloscope, I have to take it up to the house because I don't have room for the oscilloscope down here. Because one of the things they don't tell you when you start getting into this hobby is that you're just continually adding new bits of equipment. So you start off with a soldering iron. I say, oh, that's all cool. And then you go, oh, okay, yeah, then you're going to need a hot air station. Okay, no worries, hot air station. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing this because I started off doing real micro soldering. So then it's like, oh, you need a microscope. Okay, there's a microscope. That takes up a massive amount of space. And then you got a solder sucker. Oh, there's another machine on the table. And then, oh, yeah, we're going to need a fume extractor. Okay, no worries. There's another spot on the table. And, yeah, are you going to live stream? Oh, you need a computer on your table and a keyboard. Okay, all right, no worries. There's that. And then, oh, and you're going to do testing. Okay, so you're going to need a bench power supply, a workshop power supply. And then, you know what? You may even need two of them because you might need to output more than one voltage at a time. I should have bought one with double outputs, but that's another story. Let's not talk about that. Can I fit? Can I fit? Can I fit? Can I fit in there without melting? Oh, it's not going, is it? Come on! Right, this is what I do. Oh, you can't see. I did it again. I keep doing this where I can't see. So I've got this tiny weeny little space here. I've got one or two ways I can do it. And either go straight down and you won't be able to see that because I'll have to move the microscope out of the way. Or I can use this tip here, which I'm going to show, which is my bent conical tip. And I like this one because it has a flat surface on the side of the bend, which helps me get good heat transfer along that flat edge or along that bent edge there. And it fits into nooks and crannies. So just waiting for it to heat up now. I've recapped a few game consoles, just responding to some of the chat that's going on in there. It's not my first choice of things to recap, only because I don't know enough about them. I never really used game consoles growing up, so you know I'm absolute novice when it comes to that sort of stuff. I'm not particularly good at games at all, I do like playing Civilization. I come back to playing that quite a bit. But I did, was it a Nintendo 64 or something? I did a couple of those, I think. You're not the conical. So just to explain the comment that the House of Moth, Jay from the House of Moth, has just given, check out his YouTube channel, and check out his website, appleserialnumberinfo.com. Stop beeping. Appleserialnumberinfo.com. Please feel free to drop a link in there, Jay. This is Jay's website where you can go and look up Apple serial numbers, including some of the old vintage stuff that we have on this YouTube channel. There is also a poll on the page. You vote for your favourite Mac out of the 4 options there. So everyone, when you get a chance, jump onto the website, go vote for the Quadra 950. I'm desperately trying to rig this competition. Okay, let's have a look here. Alright, we can solder the other side of this one now. So, we have this little discussion about conical tips. And the thing is that a conical tip is a tip that is kind of like this. Just comes to a point at the end. And the very frustrating thing about it is that people often buy these and they buy them with, oh, I'm going to do precision soldering. I get one with a really, really fine tip on the end. And that sort of kind of seems logical. One of the big problems these conical tips have is transferring the heat onto what you're soldering. It's all very well to have a fine tip, but when the tip is that fine, it doesn't hold much heat. It doesn't transfer the heat. There's not much surface area to transfer the heat onto something. So these conical tips, which just about every soldering iron you buy comes with a conical tip, which just drives me bonkers. I basically use a bevel tip for pretty much everything. And Jay will agree with me on that. I mean, it's like we know that the conical tips are a real pain to work with. So I use a bevel tip, which is like this one here. It's got a flat edge on it. So it still has a nice fine point on the end, so you can get it into places, but it's a flat edge there, and so you can push that flat edge down on things and transfer that heat into places. So that's always my my preference is to use a bevel tip, and I just use different size bevel tips. I've got a little teeny weeny bevel tip that I use when I'm working on my new Macs, you know, things like a MacBook Pro or something like that. And then I've got a great big fat bevel tip like this one for when I'm wanting to remove solder, say from wanting to suck some solder out of a hole with some solder wick, something like that, where I really need a lot of heat concentrated in a particular area. So this is the little joke we have about conical tips. We don't like conical tips, but I do make an exception for the bent conical tip because it has that nice curved area where you can kind of get into nooks and crannies and still provide a decent amount of heat to where you want to go. Because as I've said many times in my live streams before, the things you need in order to get really good solder joints, you need clean contacts. Everything needs to be clean. You need to have a decent amount of heat, and you need to have a good quality flux. And getting a decent amount of heat is, part of that thing with using the right tip for the job, to make sure that tip gets the heat where you need it. So we've only got 4 more caps to put on this one, and then I think we can give it a try. We can give it a little test out. Then I'll drop this in the ultrasonic cleaner to make it look like it's brand new. And then it will be ready to give back to the customer, assuming it works, of course. I have every reason to believe that there's a very good chance that this will probably work, maybe. Okay, moving right along here, getting these caps down. Come on. I've got myself a little tight little spot in there, which I don't want, I don't like. And I always, whenever I have capacitors like this that are sitting next to each other like that, for me the goal is always to make sure that they look very symmetrical. They line up and not crooked, because otherwise you're going to be looking at this board afterwards and go, oh my god, they're crooked. A butane iron. Yeah, well, I mean, look, the biggest issue I've had with butane irons, they get hot, but getting accurate temperature output on them is a little bit difficult. But the biggest issue I've had with butane irons, even buying like a good quality one, I bought a Weller butane iron. They're really, really dodgy. I mean, you'd just be using them and then they'll suddenly just stop. You know, like, and then you put them at a different angle and the flame suddenly picks up again, and and it's like, have I got enough gas in there? Yeah, it's full of gas. What's going on? I'll add some more gas anyway, and you just be soldering away, and the flame will just go light dark, light dark, light dark, light dark, and then it'll come on really strong, and then it might stop. And I just got sick of them. Look, they're very handy in certain circumstances in the right place. If you need to do some soldering remotely, the butane soldering iron is very, very handy, but I really don't consider them an alternative for a proper, sort of a proper soldering station. I need to update the links on my the little affiliate links that I have on there, where I talk about all the different things that you can buy, the equipment that I use, all that sort of stuff, because I have a low-cost soldering iron that I bought recently, which I've been so far pretty happy with. So nothing kind of unpredictable has happened with it. So and it's very nice to solder with. So I need to probably update those links to point to that one. I may even do a little review on it. But as I often mention in my videos, what I recommend if you're getting a soldering station is get one that takes T12 tips. And those are these great big long tips that I use on my soldering iron. They're made by Hakko. I use genuine Hakko tips, but there are lots of knockoffs out there that are still pretty darn good. And the important thing about these T12 tips is the tip itself is the part generating the heat. So rather than a normal soldering station where you have the heater in the handle and then you put the tip on top and the handle heats the tip, this one, the tip is actually the heater. So it's really good. Does your Colour Classic whine when powered on? Mine does. Does mine whine? Don't think it does, but I've certainly come across plenty that do. Colour Classics, in case you weren't aware, I don't know if you've actually done this, Colour Classics require their analog boards to be recapped in a big way. I threw the caps away, but I did a Colour Classic analog board the other day. The leakage coming out of the 5600, I think 10 volt capacitors, they're the big ones that are lying down, they're bent down sideways. Lazy Jones, thank you very much. I'd like to thank you for your videos on recapping and floppy repair. I've had a lot of fun recapping, refurbing an LC3 and 6100. I would never have had the confidence were it not for your work. Well, thank you very much. They're very, very kind words, and I am very, very happy to be of assistance, because that is the aim. I do like to try and do this stuff to make it so that other people feel confident enough to give it a try themselves, because let's face it, there is nothing more fun or more rewarding than getting these old Macs either working if they weren't working, or keeping them running for as long as possible. I'm just going around checking to make sure I've put all the caps on the right way around. Stripe is the positive on tantalum, stripe is the negative on electrolytic, so they're just around the wrong way because these electronics people like to confuse you. So the stripe is on the positive. As you can see, there's a little screen printed plus on the board, shows me where positive is, but you can also tell by the little bevel on this little shape here. That's a shape that shows you where a surface mount electrolytic would go, and they have this little bevel on the positive side. So I'm just checking to make sure that these are all been put down correctly, they've all been properly soldered on both sides, and that the stripe is pointing to the plus side. Always important to go in and check your work, especially if you're live streaming at the same time, because if you're live streaming at the same time, you may well lose concentration and stick something on the wrong place, the wrong way around, and then chaos will ensue. If you put the capacitor around the wrong way, it actually tears a hole in the fabric of the space-time continuum. And the next thing you know, there are all sorts of things coming through that hole, and there's chaos, and then you need Doctor Who to help you out and all that sort of stuff. So just don't put them around the wrong way. That's all I can say. Okay, so yep, okay, Caden, that's not a bad idea. Look, I do have a video on removing, not sure about recapping, but I definitely have a video on removing the Color Classic analog board. I think I might do recapping as well, but I can't remember. But have a look at my channel. You'll find, if you search for Color Classic, you'll find lots of videos on the Color Classic there. Did you 3D print a T12 tip holder? So I 3D printed an adapter, not my design, someone else's design, but I 3D printed an adapter that allows you to connect, to use this part of a Hakko handle on a TS100 soldering iron. So if you're not aware of a TS100, you can do a little search on them. They're a cute little soldering iron that you can power them pretty much from any power supply between 12 and 24 volts, as long as it's decent amperage, because you've got to remember you're having to produce enough power to heat up a soldering iron. And they have all of the controls in the handle themselves, and they've got open source firmware, so people have actually gone in and created their own interfaces for them and everything. But they have a different type of soldering iron tip in them, and I don't know if I have one. Yeah, I do. The tip for the TS100 looks like this. And what ends up happening is when you hold the soldering iron down the end, you're a long way away from the tip, so it's harder to get really precise action with it. So I got a 3D model thingy which hooks into the TS100, and then this section here you can feed into the top of that, and then you can use the TS100 like that with, you know, nice close proximity to the end of the tip. So that's what I did. I mean, you're limited to what you can do with a 3D print, because I've been mainly using PLA, and PLA has a fairly low melting temperature. Not good for soldering irons. Alright, okay. What temp do you solder at? I tried SMD soldering practice board and completely melted some of my components. I solder a really high temperature, and I solder at a temperature that is probably higher than I would recommend for others. Generally have it set on 430 degrees Celsius. What I do when I solder is I regulate the temperature by how long I leave the iron on the spot, and that takes some practice. The idea is that you get in, you solder, you get out. If you are using these sorts of high temperatures and you're around plastic components, if you're trying to solder a surface mount, say LED, those LEDs, they're just going to melt. So I solder in a way where I solder at a very high temperature, but I solder very fast. But that's something that does take practice. So isn't necessarily what I'd recommend to start off with. Probably start off at around about, I don't know, what is it? Probably 375, something like that, high 300s. Work with that, practice. The main thing with these things is to get hold of boards that we don't care about, like old PCs, old Windows computers. Get those boards and pull things apart, put things on, take components off, put them back on again. Just get practice. Get a feel for the way the solder works, how long it takes for that solder to melt, how long it takes for that solder to harden again once it's melted. You know, because that can be another thing as well. If you start moving things around before that solder fully hardens, you know, you stuff up the joints. I do it all the time. So you just got to get that feel. Goodness me, someone's cooking something that smells divine. Yum. Boy. Okay. Right. Okay. So let's test this thing, shall we? I am going to put the RAM back in it, and I'm going to go grab. I'm going to grab a Color Classic. It's not going to work properly because, you know, we won't get the proper video, because the video on the else this is outputting a 640 by 480 signal, and the Color Classic can only do a what is it, 520 by 384. Is that right? Is that? It's coming out of my head grapes, and sometimes they're a little bit, they fuzz things up. But I think it's 520 by 384 resolution on the Color Classic, and yeah, there's 640 by 480. So we won't get a proper screen output, but we should at least be able to hear it chime, and we should be able to see it start up and try and start from it. 512. Thank you. Sorry, brain grapes failed me. 6337 solder is 188C or 375 Fahrenheit. Yeah, I mean, that's the melting point of it. It isn't necessarily the temperature you would solder with, because you need the soldering iron to be hotter than the actual just melting point of the solder. So and then obviously with leaded solder it needs to be higher again. So, and incidentally, I do use a 6337 mix, 512 kV RAM for LC475. That is awesome. Here's a couple here, 512s. The 512s are the ones that are hard to get. Easy to get 250. I've got heaps of 256s. I've only got two 512s myself, and I have them in my 475. But yeah, so this one's got two 512s. All right, I'm going to press the back soon thingy. I'm going to go grab my Color Classic, and then we're going to test this thing out, and hopefully it'll all work. Well, hello. So this is my Color Classic. Don't look too close because it's actually a Performer 250. We won't tell anyone. It currently has no board in it. I'm just going to whip the back off. It has no screws in it either because I pull these things apart so often. I pull them apart so often there's really no point in me putting screws in them. There we go. Come on. She's coming off now. There she goes. Sorry about all the wobble. There we go. Okay. So the caps I was referring. No, I won't show you. They're too hard to see. But anyhow, here's the analog board. These analog boards get really hot. They're generally the Color Classic power supply. Most people would agree they are not powerful enough for what they do. They really should have made a better quality power supply for them. But, yeah. Oh, thank you very much for that, Jay. Nice little plug. My solder temp depends on the tip and the job. Yes, see, it's a very interesting thing, and this is what I say to people. I mean, this is what a lot of people do. They vary their iron temperature quite a lot. I generally keep my iron at the same temperature all the time, and I vary the temperature that I expose things to by the speed at which I work. If I want more heat there, I hang around for a really long time. If I want less heat there, I solder and move out really quickly. It's just the way I solder. So I've tried a lot in all the times that I've been soldering. I've tried lots of different techniques, and this is the technique that works for me. It's the one that I enjoy using, and that doesn't mean it's the right method. It's just the method that works for me, and that's what I show people how to do. If you find a method that works better for you, that's fine. What I don't tolerate on my channels is when people jump onto my comments and say things like, "You're doing it wrong. Your iron is too hot," or you're doing that with the wrong method," or something like that. My response to generally, if someone says your iron is too hot, I generally respond with, "My iron might be too hot for you, but it's not too hot for me." And that might sound like I'm being arrogant. I'm not. I'm just saying that I do things differently. And that's fine. Soldering is more of, as someone said to me once, soldering is more of an art form than it is a science. And there are lots of different ways of achieving the same result. And this is the way I do it. And so, as I say, not right or wrong, it's just the way I do it. Charles, hello. Thank you very much for the super sticker. Thank you for streaming, for joining. And you have arrived just in time to see if your board is going to work, because I am actually working on your LC575 at the moment. And I was just saying before that I've never broken a customer's board before, and let's see if this is going to be the first time. So here's the 575 with your nice little sticker to tell me that's a 575. And we have finished recapping it. It still needs a good clean, of course. And we're just going to see if it works. Now, I know that you basically said this one already worked, but this is what everyone voted for. I gave them a choice of lots of different boards. I said, "Do you want ones that have worked, that worked before, or do you want ones that didn't work before?" And they all just wanted the 575. Everyone just loves it, 575. So this is what we ended up doing. So we're about to test it. and we will see if it has been successful, and if it hasn't, I'm going to cry and go home. Okay, in goes the board. Testing it, just Charles, just this is for your benefit, testing this in a Color Classic. The screen's going to go flickety because it's not the same resolution and stuff. So I've gone all Action Retro hands. So yeah, so just when this flickers, which it probably will, don't freak out. Hopefully it'll chime. Generally with these, there's a popping sound just before the chime. And if you hear that popping sound, you know it's going to chime. If you don't hear the popping sound, you go, bugger, there's something wrong with the sound chip. Right, plugging it in to 240 of the finest Australian volts. And yes, voted the 575 first. This is true. You did. I'm not doing that bloody LC2 next. That's got like 50 million capacitors on it. All right. Switch it on. Get the nice degaussing sound. And of course I can't start it without a keyboard, can I? No sir. No sir. I need to replace the keyboard in here. This ADB keyboard I've got is in such bad condition. I've got quite a lot of them. I've got quite a few spare ADB keyboards floating around. And this is one of my least favourite types. It's this type here. What's it called? The Apple Design keyboard. I bloody hate these. These are awful. Okay, we ready? Going to press the power button. 3, 2, 1. I got a small pop, but I didn't get a chime pop. And that is almost definitely because of gunk around the sound chip, and I probably just need to give it an ultrasonic clean. But I did hear the sound of this thing firing up, so I think if we give this a moment, don't be surprised if the display is blue or purple either. There we go, look at that. Look, it's actually working. It's not meant to. It's not meant to work. Why are you working? Who do you think you are? Shall we give it a hard drive? Yeah. This is, I think, System 7.01, which I don't think will work with this. But it'll be enough to check and see if that's working. So, speaker is plugged in, so that's something. I will put this in the ultrasonic cleaner next and clean it, and then we'll base... Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen because this is running an operating system it's not meant to run, I don't think. So, I'm going to put this in the ultrasonic cleaner because anyone who watched my stream last time, I had an SE30 that I was working on. Thank you very much, Justin. Much appreciated. I had an SE30 I was working on, getting horizontal bars on it, chuck it in the ultrasonic cleaner, comes out, works perfectly. Never underestimate the destructive power of gunge. So, let's not worry about restarting this or pursuing this any further, because at least we know it starts up and it does actually sort of boot. I wonder if I reconfigure this to start off system set. Yeah, okay. The system disk will not work on this Macintosh, blah, 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 blah. So what if I reconfigure this SCSI to SD, because we have the tools, we have the magic here at our disposal, and we will see if I can get this to work on this so we can boot it and at least feel reasonably happy. Come on. Here's the plug. There it is. This is a SCSI to SD version 5.5, which I must say is one of my favourite little devices on this planet. Just the ability to plug it into sort of a vintage Mac externally and then just load a system from it is incredibly convenient, especially when you have as many of these things as I do. And interestingly enough, the other day I did the mod, the diode mod, the SCSI termination power diode mod to my Mac Plus. It's where you put in a diode at location CR1, and it means you can actually then power these SCSI to SDs without needing external power with a Mac Plus. Very, very useful. Okay, so let's change that to that, that to that, that to that. Hang on. What? 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 if I do that one, and that one, and that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Okay, I think we're good. That one, that one, that one. All right, let's save to device. My little I love my SCSI device. Ultrasonic linked in your description. Fit a motherboard. It depends on the size of the motherboard. Thank you for answering that one, Jay. What size is a motherboard? That's the question. See, you can have a nice tidy little motherboard like this, little classic, fit that no problem, and then you can go all the way up to a, where is that monster of a thing? Here's a Macintosh 2FX motherboard. No, that's going to be hard to get. I've got a 950. Here we go. There it is. Look at this. Look at this monster. Look at this. It's a Quadra 950 motherboard. The ultrasonic cleaner that I have in my description is a 10-litre one. It's similar to the one that I have here. That will carry, it'll take everything up to a Macintosh compact Mac like an SE or an SE30. It'll take one of those boards up in one go, you know, and you can submerge the whole thing. If we're talking about, say, a 2CX or a 2VX or something like that, 2CI, you can clean them in two halves, half side in, flip it over, clean the other side. If you want to go any bigger than that, no, they definitely won't. I custom made this one here because I have weird sized boards, so that's just life. This one here will fit just about anything in it. Now, I mean, I do Amigas as well, and the Amigas are really long, so they go in this one here quite well. All right, so now what was I doing? I was doing things and such with stuff, and I'm just going to see. I just wanted to see if we can just get this thing to boot. And it may not, because as I say, I definitely see lots of crud on the board, and I would love to clean it first, but we'll just see. I'm just trying it on system 7.5. Yeah. If you're wondering why this is purple like this, it's to do with this analog board on this computer. It needs some adjustment. And it also has some problems with contacts in the connector up here, which I need to sort those out. It's always the case when it's your own Mac, you kind of don't prioritize the repairs. You're always prioritizing the repairs of your customers' boards before your own. So this is my Color Classic, and he's in desperate need of some TLC, but I just haven't had a chance to spend that time on it yet. How big is a PET 2001 board? Do tell. It can't be bigger than that 950, Quadra 950, can it? I mean, of course it could be, but... Mac 2 board. I have put a Mac 2 board in this cleaner before. You can clean most of it. This looks like a tongue, doesn't it? I'm not getting any flickering light. All right, I'm not going to do any more with this one for now because that's just going to get tedious. So I'm going to switch this little fella off. I'm going to take him out. This board is going to go into the ultrasonic cleaner, and he is going to get some magic treatment. This board will fit in that one that I have in the description. Mac 2 board, you can clean about probably 80% of the board. Do one side, flip it over to the other side, but you can't get the whole board in there. It's just not possible. One of the big problems with ultrasonic cleaners, even the big ones you buy, they don't do those big boards, because when they make them, the way they design them, Odin's eye patch, that's heavy. Right. And you can go there, and you can go there. Right. So the way they design the containers in these things, whatever size they happen to be. So this is a 10-litre one that I've got over there, and over there. You can't see it because it's over there. The next size up might be, say, a 15-litre, or it might be a 20-litre or a 30-litre. They get a little bit bigger that way, they get a little bit bigger that way, and they get a little bit bigger that way. as they go up, and each one a little bit bigger that way, a bit bigger that way, and so you end up just getting this larger kind of cube type shape. But of course, if you're trying to clean a really big board like a Mac 2 or a Quadra 950 or something like that, you're wanting something that is long and thin. Now there are other manufacturers that do make longer, thinner ultrasonic cleaners that are shaped more like a toaster in that regard, that you can slot things down that way. They're quite expensive though. What I ended up doing is I ended up making my own, which is this one here, and I ended up buying like a catering tray in a size called a 1 gastronorm. I think it's a European size, and it's very long and very, it goes back a long way, but it's quite shallow. It's only down to probably about, the depth is about there, probably about that. But because it's so wide and so deep at the back there, I can just drop the board in sideways like that. Just do one side like that, flip it over one side like that. And then inside I have 8 transducers, 8 ultrasonic transducers that are set at equal distances along there. And then they're for each 2 of them, they're powered by 1 power supply. So 1 power supply does 2 transducers. And then I have this rigged up with these fans, and then I switch it on, it starts cooling, and then I've got a little timer switch here, which if I spin this around a little bit, you see the timer switch? This is just a mechanical one that I can turn it, and it just goes tick, 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 and counts backwards. So how far I turn it is how long it cleans for. So I've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then up to 30 minutes. Most of the time when I'm cleaning things, I'm usually cleaning them for around about, depending on the state, if it's a really old board in a very poor condition, I'll probably do it for 20 minutes, maybe 25. If it's a board like this, it's really not too bad. Actually, it is pretty bad. This is that one that's got all of the moldy stuff on it. Wait, what's going on there? This one I'll probably give it maybe 15 minutes aside, maybe 20. We'll see. But the ones that really aren't that bad, only 5 or 10 minutes required. Yeah, no, that's all right. Just looked funny, just a trick of the light. So we weren't getting any sound. So that could just be all this. I mean, you can see all this gunk that's left behind here from me doing this recapping. But I will just check these pins to make sure they all look all right. And they certainly look gunky. There's no doubt about that. And I suspect that a good old ultrasonic clean and this thing will be in full voice again. Yep. So, all right. Sorry, I didn't actually switch over the camera when I did that, so you saw nothing. Okay, so that one is ready for ultrasonic cleaning. Let's just get the RAM. Not that bag. Here we go. Got my little bag that's got the job number on it. Little job ticket number. And reheat the flux. Yes, if you get that flux a little bit warm before you chuck it in, it'll clean away a lot quicker. But I have the baths in these ultrasonic cleaners are heated as well. I have them at around about 50 degrees Celsius, and that heat helps to make the flux go gooey again and come off nice and easily with the cleaning. If I've got flux that's really thick on there, I might actually just scrub it away with some isopropyl alcohol and a toothbrush first, just to make the job of the ultrasonic cleaner a little bit easier. I'm going to take the little LC575 sticker off, and it just tore. What the hell? Because putting a sticker into the ultrasonic cleaner, it'll just fall apart, and we'll end up with little bits of paper everywhere. And I'll probably take the CPU off before it goes in the cleaner, so the cleaner can do a better job of cleaning all the little holes in the socket. So, I heard you make some really nifty things for old Macs, like batteries and keyboard legs, etc. Thank you very much for that, Jay. Jay's very good at helping me self-promote. I have been making things in 3D for these Macs. I've been making little pop-down legs for any of these keyboards that you might have where the leg's broken off. And I've been making, darn it, dagnabbit. I've been making little holders so that you can use LR44 batteries in a Mac Plus, that sort of thing. I still haven't decided what I'm going to do with them, and I do plan to sell them, but of course I'm here and most of the people that watch my channel are there, and so Potentially going to look at someone to print them for me in the US. One of, and he knows who he is. And then the other is making these STL files available. I think I'll probably make the majority of these STL files available. I think it's the right thing to do. Look at that. Well, it's just had some gunk in it, hasn't it? Look at the gunk inside the CPU socket there. Right, so this is going to get a good old clean. That's all good. How are we doing for time? 1:25. I've probably got about another 15-20 minutes before I have to get going. So, how about... I don't want to take on a full-on... See, I'm not going to do an LC2 now. No way. No way. Charles, did you want me to put an FPU socket on that? If you're still watching, Charles, can you let me know? Would you like an FPU socket put there on this for you? So you can put an FPU on the board. So the Color Classic was not working from memory. The LC520 was working. So we'll put away another was working. That's dull as. As I mentioned before, if I don't read your comments, it's not personal. It's just that they go by so fast for me here that I don't see all of them. If you have a question for me and you want it to stand out, please put @Brankus Creations at the beginning of it. It stands out on the screen here, shows me that it's a question you have for me, rather than just chat going on with the group chat. So if you do have a question, please do that. Just put the @Brankus Creations, ask the question. I'll see it and then I'll be able to answer it. As I say, when we have this many people watching, the chat goes by so fast. A question could be asked and gone from the screen before I even see it. What do we got here? Caden, thank you for watching. See you later. And, okay, what PLA do you like? Thomas Armstrong. There you go. That was the way to get my attention. I am using a couple of different brands of PLA. Probably the one I'm using the most at the moment is Flash Forge. It isn't necessarily the one that I would say, oh, that's the greatest. It's one that I've been able to get it all configured and working really well with mine. And the most important thing about it is that the electronics retailer that is just over that way, it's about a 25-minute walk for me to get there, or a 5-minute drive, they sell Flash Forge filament there. So if I start to run low, I can literally just drive 5 minutes and go and grab some. So and they sell black, red, green, white, clear, so I mean, and of course I mainly print from black, white and clear, or natural as they call it. Natural means it's just PLA without any color added to it. And so I tend to print with the Flash Forge one, and I like it. I mean, if you're looking for it, apparently it's fairly hard to buy, like on Amazon and stuff like that, but it's what I do like to use. I have used a couple of other brands as well. None of them come to mind at the moment. I'm desperately looking to find a really light grey that I can use, but all of the light greys are still quite dark. But it's just one of these things where it's hard to kind of sample what the colour looks like from photos on the interwebs. So yes, thank you very much, Thomas, for the $5 Canadian, which, if my understanding is correct, is around about $5 Australian. I think we're pretty close to parity. I could be wrong, but we were last time I checked. Right. So this is the Color Classic that wasn't working. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 caps on that one. And what was the other one? The 520. Let's just do the Color Classic. We'll start with the Color Classic. No harm. May not get it finished, but we can at least start on it and we can just be chitty-chatting while we're doing it. So, repairs. Color Classic. This one is job 120, so let's get another little Ziploc baggie, and I'll write 120 on it. And I'll put the RAM, and this has also got a 512 kV RAM. Charles, you're hogging all the 512s, dude. What the hell, man? And we've got a couple of 2 megabyte sims. You can tell these are 2 megabytes because we have this You have the 4 chips here and then this little square one on the end. Generally when you see those, you know you're talking about 2 megabyte sims. I got a whole bunch of them. I don't know where I got them from. I got them over time with different Macs, but yeah. And I can tell you one thing, the really old Macs hate them. They really don't like those. Don't try and put those in a Mac 2, it won't work. Right, let's get this sticker off. Color Classic. And let's just start pulling some of these caps off. We'll just get as many off as we can in the time that we have. As I say, I do have some time constraints because I do have other things that I need to get done today because it is Saturday. Saturday is busy day. Very pissy. So pissy. Okay, I'm going to try and get these caps off without melting the serial number. So I do like to keep serial numbers intact if I can. Let's just jump back here. I've blocked the chat now with my thing. There we go. Okay, so right, here we go. Google can't spell color. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is our. Yeah. We won't go into that. There is loads of gunk on this. There is just obscene gunk. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but the leakage gunk on this, if I flash the light on it, you can just see how it's matte. It's kind of a matte finish around this area here. There's just gunk city going on there. So, I mean, this one I'm not even sure is worth testing until it's had an ultrasonic clean, because, yeah, gunk. Right, so I had this all set up beautifully before, and now I've completely stuffed it. Come on. What? Come on. Okay, there we go. Got it in there. Right, so let's get these caps off. Let's hope they don't blow up like the other one, because I'm not wearing any eye protection other than my spectacles. These are probably going to really stink. Oh, she's swelling up. She's a bit of a slow burn rather than a popper. Yay! Happy days. Okay. Kalua and Valua. Oh, just sorry, Thomas. That's a really interesting thing. So, can you give me details of the company? Send me a message or something that does the coloured PLA, and I assume they use like the Pantone matching system, PMS colours. Would that be so? If I just send them a PMS colour, they'll make me a PLA of any colour. Is that what you're saying? I used to work in the print trade, so I am very familiar with PMS, or Pantone matching system. I bet you it cost a fortune. Smell. Oh, she's going to go. Oh, I knew she was going to go. You could just tell. They get a look about them when they're about to pop. They like that. I don't know, anyone watches Monty Python? You see that Monty Python meaning of life? The scene with, what's his name, the big fat guy in it? I can't remember the character's name from the movie. That eats that last little mint. It is on their wafer thing. And just when he eats that mint and he starts to expand, that's what these caps look like. Making sure we have our little metal heat shields here, which are basically just blades from like a little box cutting knife, and I hold them upright with these little springs, and they work really well to protect these things from heat, so that all these plastic connectors, which would normally just be melty, are still intact. This little guy here, this little cap, I regularly forget to take off. And then I'll be working on the board doing the recapping, and then I go, oh, he's still on there. Just sitting there, inconspicuously. Interestingly enough, this cap is one of the really bad leakers. I've had some boards where the damage from that tiny little cap there has just been horrendous around that area. Oh, thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate that. Yes, I think that was the one that that Jay from House of Moth. That was one of the very first things he said to me when I very first met him. Was sort of like, oh, yeah, I'm using the spring trick now. So, I don't want to melt the battery holder. I mean, I've got spare ones, but I don't want to have to replace it. Always keep lots of these battery holders around, mainly because if you have some sort of battery explosion and it's a computer that can be repaired, the first thing you've got to do is get rid of the old battery holder, because they are usually just a corroded mess. The other reason is that some of the Macs, like some of the early SEs and the Mac 2, and probably the 2X, but I've never worked on a 2X yet, believe it or not. No one has ever sent me a 2X. They have axial batteries on them, not battery holders, and so when I cut those old axial batteries off, I need to put in a battery holder in its place. So I make sure I have plenty of battery holders. Right. Mr. Creosote, that's the one. They've relocated to Netherlands. Oh, what? Oh, what? What the hell? How are we doing? Just going to check here. Oh, look at that. We're having a massive viewer drop-off here. People just don't want to see another recap. They've seen one. One's enough, thank you. One is enough. We're not recapping at 575 anymore. We are now recapping our color classic. If you buy one of these colour classics in this country, it will have a U in it. So that's what it is. This is an Australian colour classic, so it does have a U in it. Yes, Jay is a happy individual when he's got a live stream to watch. There's no doubt about that. And the worst thing, I'll tell you what, you want to see a crabby Jay from House of Moth, is when I say I'm going to do a live stream and then I back out of it at the last minute and say, oh, I can't be bothered doing a live stream. I just want to do you want to do a Skype call or something? And Jay's an unhappy chappy. He hates it when I go back on a live stream. But today, I came through with the goods. Look at this, live stream. Still going. Still going strong. Still going not quite as strong, but reasonably strong. Yeah. Geez, I was long enough there from using the soldering iron that it went into sleep mode. What am I doing? Oh, that's right. I remember. Need my fume extractor here to stop me from inhaling this ugliness. I hope other people have got things to do while they're watching this live stream. Maybe they're, I don't know, polishing their golf clubs or something. While watching, takes the pressure off me to be, continually entertaining. Real filament, yeah. Unfortunately, unless you're a moderator, it won't let you do the whole the whole link, so you'll probably just have to send it to me on Messenger or something like that, or whatever communication channel you usually use to contact me, which I can't remember. Different people contact me on different communication channels. We've got a little bit of darkness going on around this here. You can see the little bit of corrosion going on here. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. I want to see nice shiny copper. Same here. I think we're going to see a lot of that on this board, just because of how much gunk there is on it. It's just going to happen. Yep, going to happen. Discord. Okay, that's how we communicate. Bananas. Engaging in mad science. I expect no less from you, Joe. I expect all sorts of wonderful mad science coming from you, and I expect videos of it afterwards as well. I've got to build some of those little bloody phone net connector things you were doing in that video. They're bloody awesome. Bloody awesome. That, I should make you a mod so you can actually post it. There you go, Joe. You can post a link to your video on the phone net connectors, because to me, that was absolutely bloody awesome. For the vintage peoples. I've just always had a dream of one day having enough space to get all of my Macs together and make a big old local talk network. There we go, awesome. See, while I'm busy just grabbing all these computers and repairing them, Joe's going out and inventing stuff. Whoops, whoops, oh, ow! Don't try and catch blades in your hand when they're falling. Ow. That's today's super tip. Don't you love it when people give you advice for things that you would never do anyway? I had someone do that to me once. He said to me, he just used to dish out advice for things like he thought it was helping you out. He's like, don't ever try and vacuum up red wine. And I'm just, huh? You vacuumed up red wine? Why on earth would you do that? And it's like, yeah, okay, well, that's really helpful. Thanks, man. I won't do something that I consider stupid. Anyway. Yes, why would you try that? That's exactly right. Oh, dear. Well, you need to suck more. You're not sucking enough. I'm very mindful of the fact that this fume extractor does make quite a lot of noise, which can be heard in the live stream, and so I try not to have it up too much, but at the same time, when I'm starting to get a face full of flux, I know it's not doing enough. Sending a, what are they called, Roomba to vacuum dog waste. I hate to think what you'd end up with. Can you imagine? Because the problem is that now everyone is imagining, and that's a bad thing. That's a very bad thing. Here's another switch here that's not here, that could be here. That's a switch to reset the CUDA chip, CUDA reset. And I think there are even some models of Color Classic floating around where that switch is there. Maybe some very early ones, or maybe some prototypes or something. But yeah, that's what that S1 is. That's a CUDA reset switch. And that's the CUDA chip right there. There you go, 341S0417. Quite a few Macs use that same chip. I actually sent one to someone recently. Someone asked me, said, "Oh, do you have any spare of those?" And I said, yeah, I'll send you one. So I sent him one, and then I realised it was the last one I had. And I got to tell you, I felt kind of stupid. So now I have no spares until I get some more donor boards or find somewhere to buy them. Having said that, I haven't really looked to find anywhere to buy them. And because they do fail on these as well, and they can have all sorts of impacts. They can impact on the keyboard, but they can also impact on just switching the computer on, especially the ones that are a soft start. So if you're pressing the power button to start the computer, if that chip's gone, you can't start it with the keyboard. It won't switch on. You just get nothing when you press the button. Just checking that they're all clean. Clean. So fresh and so clean. Ain't no one as dope as me. I dress so fresh and clean. Okay. These are all ready for some new caps. This one was a lot quicker, wasn't it? Like it. I'm just going to check and make sure that I haven't exposed any UV mask on any of these. So when I put the caps down, we're not going to create accidental shorts. The UV mask looks... Oh, jeez. Look at that one. Look how black it is. That's no good. Get the idea. I just adapted it for modern usage. It's good enough for me. Good enough for me. I've wanted to get hold of a phone net connector for ages. I haven't really searched high and wide or anything like that, or been prepared to pay ridiculous amounts of money or anything like that. But I wanted to get a phone net connector just to reverse engineer it, so I could start punching up my own, put up my own PC boards and start making my own phone net connectors. I really don't need to anymore. At the moment, having a phone net connector for me is a little bit pointless because I really don't have enough space to set up more than one computer at any time. So if I don't have more than one computer, networking is kind of pointless. So let's clean this guy up, and then we'll get some UV mask on him, and then we'll be able to put some new caps on. Do not attempt to stop moving blade with groin area. Oh, I like that one. Never jump into a pile of leaves with a wet sucker. Okay, alright. Here we go, cleaning away. Hey, where's Dana Does Stuff? Why isn't he at my stream? I'm going to have words with him. I see him chatting things in the MacYak group chat. I see him chatting. He's not here in the live stream. Trouble. Okay. Now, I've talked about this before. This is UV solder mask, which you can buy. There are links to it in the description. It's a green stuff, and it cures when it's hit with UV light. Now you can buy all sorts of different UV lights. In the olden days, I used to actually use a fluorescent UV light, which is kind of like, can't see it, it doesn't reach, it's just coming in here. There you go, UV light. And that kind of works because you can set it up and sit it overnight and it can cure a large area. But what I do now, because it works really quickly, is I use a UV laser beam. Pew pew. I like to be called Han Solo when I'm using it. And I can just paint this stuff on and then dry it with this UV laser beam. And then we cure it and it's all strong and solid. And if you're actually asking, like, thinking, like, what is this stuff? Well, it's the same as this stuff. It's the same as this stuff. It's the same as this stuff. It's the stuff that's all over this board. It is an insulator. It is green. You can buy different colours. Okay, that'll do. So we're just going to cover that, make sure that it's protected. And then we're going to dry it with this UV light. So we're hitting it with a UV laser. And basically what happens is the board moving? Is the microscope moving? Why does it feel like it's moving? And when you're using this, it really only takes probably 20-30 seconds to dry. If you take it out in direct sunlight, it's probably about the same, probably like a minute to dry in direct sunlight. You get enough UV just from the great big UV light in the sky. Just dries this out in no time. So if I've got a really bad board that needs a huge amount of UV mask on it, I just take it out and take it out in the sun and leave it there. I just paint it all on in one big go, sit it in the sun for a bit, and then come back and stick caps on it. When I'm working at, when I'm doing this sort of stuff, when I'm not live streaming, you get a bit of a production line going. You start on one board, and then one board's in the cleaner, and then the cleaner into the dryer, and then I'm recapping the next one and stuff. And so you get a bit of a production line. If you have one that needs to have a lot of UV mask on it, I can just UV it, then I can put it in the sun and just work on the next one. But of course when I'm doing that, I do it silently. No point in live streaming that. Dana is not home, but rest assured you are being watched on the big screen where he currently is. Isn't that nice? Hello Dana, I hope you are busy doing stuff. So you cannot say hello back to me, so I will just say hello to you and thank you for watching on the big screen. I do appreciate it. This is, as you can see, when it dries, it becomes more of a matte finish than the shiny. So once we go matte finish like that, we know, once it's all Matthew finish, we know it's ready for caps to go on it. So, Colour Classic, recapping guide. Recapping guide, where did I put it? Oh, here it is. Now you'd think I'd remember the Colour Classic off by heart. I sort of do, but I still like to check. Colour Classic 2, Colour Classic, and well, here we go, that looks like, yeah, Colour Classic. Colour Classic backwards. So we have one 10 microfarad 16 and two 100 6.3 and 647 16. So let's get those on there. Let's start with a little tiny one. This is the 10 microfarad 16 volt. And this is what I was saying before, that I have recently started using smaller caps for this. And these smaller caps work much better on these little owls. Oh, Dana, I'm never happy. Never happy. Never happy unless you're watching a live stream. Thank you very much, Dana. I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you, thank you. And thank you for watching even if you weren't busy in the chat. I do appreciate it. Don't get away with anything in this Maciac group. Oh, don't say that, Charles. I've still got a whole stack of yours to do. But Charles, I asked this before. I don't know if you're around, or maybe you answered it and I didn't see the answer. Did you want me to put an FPU socket on your LC2? Ain't no one as dope as me, I dress so fresh and clean. What a good singer. What a good singer. So there we go. There's our first cap on the board. Nice little one, looking happy. Now we're going to do the 200 microfarad 6.3 volt, which always hang around the sound chip on these boards. You'll find it's the same sort of configuration on all these 520, 575, 550, Color Classic 2. They've always got these 200 microfarad 6.3 volt caps living up here in the corner. And with this one, it is those two there. Yep. So, get our flux. Yes, please. Thought so. I vaguely remember you saying it, but I can't remember. I could obviously go back and look at the conversation. This Color Classic board that you got here, this has got some absolutely grade A scunge on it. I tell you, this one is one leaky board. I honestly don't expect this to work straight after these caps are on there. I think it will need ultrasonic cleaning as well. So before I'm going to get any life out of it, or certainly get any sound out of it, we'll see. We might, but that's just my expectation based on other ones that I've worked on. I think this one is so gunky that it's not going to work till it's clean. Spin this around because I don't want to melt it, because the person who owns the board is actually watching me at the moment, which means I have to be really on my game. And so starting off with the right amount of solder on the tip is a good way to start. There we go. Now it's too much. That's alright. That's a nice joint. That's a nice joint. It's a good joint. It's a nice joint, yes. I was talking about the little numbers on these caps. You can see 107, and the 107 is telling me that it is 10 followed by 7 zeros. 7 zeros, which means it will be 100 million picofarads. And that translates to 100 microfarads. And then the 6 there tells me it's 6 volts or 6.3. Generally with these caps, if you see 6, they're 6.3. So let's face it, it's so close. I mean, come on. Come on. What's the difference between 6 and 6.3? 0.3, that's nothing. It's nothing. Alright, so that's all of those ones. All the rest now are 47 microfarad capacitors, and there are a grand total of 6 of them, which is not many at all, so it will not take me long to finish this board, and we may even be able to test it and watch it not work, because of based on what I just said before. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. TANTs. TANTs. That's the abbreviation for tantalum capacitors. What are you using? TANTs? I'm using TANTs. Say that to sound like you know what you're talking about. Oh yeah, I'm using TANTs. Oh yeah, I answered yes earlier. Sorry, I didn't see it. Terrible. At least I know now. I know yes now. Yeah, as I say, I ended up with quite a lot of people watching at one stage during this video, and at that time, the chat was kind of zooming by, and I was just missing stuff. And, you know, and it's a great way to stay in shape. And it's a great way to stay in shape. be having that. Unhappy. Sorry, I'm extremely unhappy with the way I positioned that one, so I had to do it again. If you suddenly decide that you've positioned it badly, can I tell you it's a lot easier to change it if you've only soldered one side. Gotta line up. Gotta line up. Can't not line up. There we go. Well, I made bloody hard work of that one, didn't I? God, this thing is still leaking. I'm down to like the last third of the tube and it's still leaking. There's my little tip for everyone. Don't buy the 30mm tubes. I mean, I used to not have this much trouble. I don't know why. But yeah, don't get the 30mm tubes. Get the 10mm tubes. Get 3 10mm tubes if you need 30mm. Because these 30mm tubes are just bad. I was trying to think of a word there that kind of sounded more intense but wasn't a swear word. And I failed. All I could come up with was bad. Just dropped the soldering on. Sorry. Came from the dump. Oh man. Oh man. Which dump are you going to? It has Colour Classics in it. Wish I found Colour Classics in the dump. Yeah, okay, Thomas has just made a very interesting comment there, basically referring to when you are putting an IC down, a large IC with lots of pins that have to be soldered, and then you suddenly realise, uh-oh, it's facing the wrong way. Oh, I've done it. I've done it. I can relate. When I have a component like this, which is just slightly off in terms of centering, rather than mucking around too much with trying to redo it and get it exactly right, I just do a little trick where I kind of bend it from the other side. I'll show you in a sec. This is too far that way. There we go. You can just do a little bit of just kind of last minute fine adjustment. And pop that there. Grit. We're nearly done, folks. Are you excited? I'm excited. So this one here is just slightly off kilter. I'm just going to bend it a little bit to get that straight. Just like that. So that's now straight. And just so that there's no additional tension from bending it on this side, I just remelt this side as well. So, because if I'm applying a bend, I don't want it to be under constant stress. So just bend it, solder this side, and remelt this side so that any tension that's there is just released. I haven't been watching what I'm actually broadcasting on camera. I could well be doing things that you can't even see out of view. I might even be out of focus. I apologise. Michael's Workshop, hello. Alexander Wallace, thanks for all you do. Your videos have helped me a lot. You are most welcome and thank you very much for watching them. And I am so glad that they have been of help, because that is the whole idea. You know, I do this stuff because I enjoy it. I enjoy keeping these things going, and I also enjoy trying to share knowledge wherever possible. I'm just one of these people that feels like, you know, pass it on. If you've found a way of doing something, you know, sort of better or easier or faster or whatever, pass it on. This is actually one of the things that I do love about some of these, you know, communities, whether it be like a vintage Mac community or, You know, more recently the stuff that I've been doing with 3D printing, the 3D printing community. It's a wonderful community spirit, people happy to share things, share techniques, share past failures, you know, that sort of thing. Where someone can turn around and say, you know what, I tried doing it this way and it didn't work. I reckon you'd be much better off doing it that way. So, oh, Michael Mullet, hello. All right, so that is a Colour Classic. This is the last thing we're going to be doing before signing off. We are going to just test it, though I 100%, well, let's just call it 97%. Actually, that's not fair. Let's say 65% expect it's not going to work because it's so dirty. It's going to need good old ultrasonic clean. So we're going to put it in and try it out anyway because, well, why not? There's no harm in it. But I just don't want anyone to get their hopes up about it potentially working because I really don't think it will. So let's just get this board out of the way. The other thing is we're not likely to get any sound on this because none of the little ground hooks are in it. All of them are missing. And if you don't ground these properly, you often don't get sound. So I will expect this to probably not make a noise, but if we can get it to work, that's great. I hope you have some spare ones of those little hooky things there, Charles, because yeah, I might have a spare one, but I'm not sure that I do, because I end up with those. There always seems to be fewer of them than you need, not more of them. So yeah, okay. So here's my Colour Classic, which is in a very, very poor state because it just gets used for so much. Let's go to this camera here. We'll point it down a little bit so we can see the screen. I haven't got this camera up here working yet, so Mac Classic and SE there also both. Oh man, you got to send me the address of this dump, man. I want to know. I want some of these things. Not fair. I never see any of those things. Right, I'm going to put the RAM and VRAM in it. And floppy video is great. You talking about my little floppy restoration video? Thank you very much. I have since watched that and feel like I want to do it again, but I'm glad it was of assistance. Basically what happened is I was searching on YouTube and I found someone else's floppy restoration video. I don't want to diss that person. That person's providing free content. They're doing it. That's great. It's awesome. But I wasn't particularly happy with the way they did some of the things in that video, just in terms of camera views and close-ups and stuff. And so I thought, oh, I think I might be able to do a better one. So I thought I'd give it a try. So if it was of assistance, that is awesome. All right, so we're getting down to the pointy end here, folks. We're about to test out this Colour Classic, which we totally expect not to work. Incidentally, when I do work on these things, if there are problems with them, I will typically put updates on my Brankus Creations Facebook page. So if you are on Facebook, if you go to my Brankus Creations page and like it and follow it or whatever, you will often see updates that I do. If I've finished a live stream and it hasn't worked, I might do a little bit of work afterwards, and then I get it working, and then I just do a post to say, hey, look, you got it working, often with an explanation as to what was wrong with it or what fixed it. Like the SE30, the little video I put on before on my Brankus Creations Facebook page, and that was from an ultrasonic clean. You can 3D print that peg and run a copper wire up it. Yeah, I never look. I imagine you could probably just bend a paperclip and solder it on. You know, it's just a little piece of metal that needs to touch the RF shielding. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it'd be a difficult thing to replicate. All right, okay, here we go. Power on. There we go. Lovely degaussing sound going on there when you do that. All right, so let's press the power button and see what happens. As again, I said before, fully expecting it to not work properly. And expectations well and truly met. Nothing happening. Nothing happening at all. Nothing. Let's whip the board out and put the board in, which is kind of like that hard start type thing that you do, and nothing. So that's good. Expectations are met. I'm glad I didn't go around predicting this thing was going to work, because I really didn't expect it to. So we have got 2 contenders here for the ultrasonic cleaner, and I do believe that the ultrasonic cleaner is going to give us a good result with these, because very, very grubby. Grubby. Okay, so I'm going to put this down. I am going to start the old wrap-up process. We're all familiar with it, or if you've watched my live streams, you are, where I basically sit here and I say hello to everyone and goodbye to everyone and thank you to everyone and all that sort of stuff. I just check on the chat. Things missing, info on specific grease you used and maybe how to recap one if you are going overboard. Yeah, certainly the grease. I should definitely add some information about that. No doubt about that. Yeah, I don't use lithium grease in it, but that is what you should use. And okay, so thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Thank you everyone who has watched it, and thank you everyone who has enjoyed it, and thank you everyone who's contributed, and the super chats or super stickers. Thank you. I really appreciate it. The chat's been great today. There's been lots of active stuff. We've covered a lot of topics as we've been here for the last however many hours. It has been quite a few, 3 or something like that. It's a long one. And I am going to head off now and get myself some food because I'm starving. So, once again, thank you everyone. Thanks for keeping me company. Thanks for all your contributions, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye now.